All right, guys. Appreciate you guys sticking around. Anybody know the score? I was gonna do something a little bit different. Tyler kind of filled me in that I was following Kevin Jodrey last, so there's no way I was gonna follow Kevin Jodrey last with a PowerPoint. So don't expect that. A lot of great speakers. Actually, let me back up. I just want to thank Tyler and the grassroots team for putting this together. Now, I've driven up here for years because this is the heart of this industry. The best weed in the world has been grown up here. But I just want to make the invitation to Tyler next time he does this that I'm right outside of Las Vegas. I designed an entire produce farm, open model, with a 8,000 square foot barn, 6,000 square foot pole barn. We could all be sitting outside in the shade, chilling, farming, actually doing it as we talk about it. So if you guys ever want to do it outside of Las Vegas, I'd love to host it. Save me the drive, save me the flight. Keep me posted.
You guys want a Soil Life Summit in Las Vegas? I think that sounds like a great idea.
I'll give you guys the excuse to go to Sin City. I mean, you need it at the end of the day. All right, so I wanted to do something different. Some of my favorite speakers are actually Kevin Jodrey. He's obviously got that gift of gab. And then Josh and Kelly from Dragonfly Earth Medicine have always been huge to me. They're very inspirational when they talk. It's more like just getting you pumped up and getting you through whatever you're going through into that next step. I also think they're extremely crucial to this industry because they're like the fungi, the hyphae, the mycelium network in the soil that's kind of connecting us all and just really doing the work for us. So I really respect them. And I want to kind of give a Dragonfly motivational kind of speech today. We've seen a lot of data from a lot of really smart people. Like Kevin said, who could say, I couldn't say anything they said better than they said it. So I use all of it though. So I want you guys to ask me questions about every single speaker you saw today, except for the SAP analysis. That's one thing I haven't done. But feel free to ask me about all the speakers because I've used their techniques, I've used their services. I do have opinions based off of experience with a lot of the things that was said this week. And so I do want to open it up at the end for some questions. I want you guys to feel comfortable asking questions. No such thing as a stupid one. All right, but one thing I hear over and over again is I have a unique way of thinking. I have a unique way of looking at problems. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, by no means, but I have a good understanding of how things work. And I'm able to really, solve for the problem when we find it. So I can't just tell you guys how to think like me, but one thing I think I could do is just maybe tell you guys my story, and it might give you guys a better understanding of why I think the way I think. And then I think maybe within my story, I think maybe you guys could find some strength and inspiration because, let's be honest, the cannabis industry is suffering right now. It's not easy to survive, and we all are striving to have a regenerative business. I mean, real quick, if you're indoors, don't say you're a regenerative farm, okay, guys? We use regenerative practices, but we're not a regenerative farm. But we strive for those things. But to be regenerative, you first have to be sustainable. All right, so I'm gonna try to show you guys how to sustain business through some of the things I've learned, trial and error, just some basic principles that I follow that I think can help you guys. So right off the bat, great speakers this weekend, all right? Highly educated, great people. I'm not. I'm the opposite of that cloth, all right? I grew up poor as shit, homeless, trailer parks, kicked out of school. I've had houses raided, lived in trap houses. I'm not from the Ivy League cloth. I'm not cut from that cloth, okay? I learned to take the good with the bad very early in life, all right? I do things that are crazy because I came from nothing, so I have nothing to lose. So I go big with everything I do, all right? Straight the fuck up. So let's back up. My first hustle, again, is when you don't have nothing, you tend to, have a chip on your shoulder. I've always had a chip on my shoulder. I've always had a hustle. I've always had a desire for more. My very first hustle, and this isn't playing into later, was when I got to middle school and I learned rich kids had to pay $3 for something I got for free. That was it, dude. I was sold. I was like, all right, cool. So, hey, dude, you got $3? Your mom, dad give you $3? That's cool. I'll sell these for $1.50. And I sold my free lunch and my breakfast for $1, my lunch for $1.50. I walked out every single day with $2.50. I ended the week with $10. Every week with $10. And that was my hustle. That was my very first hustle. I made it work for the person. They got $1.50. I got $1.50. I wasn't going to eat that shitty fucking school food anyway, so it was no loss to me. And then I had weed money at the end of the week. So I just want to say that because that's going to play into a little phrase I'm going to say later on that you guys probably ain't going to like, but you'll see what I'm saying. So got in trouble in high school, wasn't doing so good. I was just a distraction for all the kids who were there to learn. I quickly got pulled out of high school. My parents, I was always athletic, I always had a lot of energy. My parents put me into martial arts. They saved my life, straight up. Nothing saved my life more than martial arts. So I would like to put cannabis in that box, but it's just not. Martial arts was that for me. I was fortunate enough to live in Las Vegas. That's kind of like a MMA epicenter of the world. A lot of the best trainers are there. My mom and dad ended up meeting this man named Nick Blumgren, One Kick Nick. This dude is like a war hero, Purple Heart veteran, Hell's Angel, nightclub bouncer, used to tour with Rico Suave as his bodyguard. This dude's got like a fucking crazy life, dude, all right? He's a highly respectable dude, demands respect. And when I went to his gym, I learned the basics of martial arts in his system, and he had a very strict military-based system. It was a systematic approach to everything. So I started learning systems thinking at like 15 years old in the form of martial arts. You know, he does this, and there's so many options. If I move this, I'm susceptible to that. If I move this way, I'm susceptible to that. If I move this way, I'm susceptible to that. If he flinches, you start to learn these things. And jiu-jitsu was a big one for me. Did anybody in here practice jiu-jitsu? Oh man, you guys need to. Oh, thank you. So jiu-jitsu to me is like, it's like permaculture. I feel like Jesus is walking around doing permaculture, training jiu-jitsu, spitting Hinduism, and some of those things that jive. I feel like jiu-jitsu is like right in their chest, is like a form of jiu-jitsu, just to kind of put things into perspective. So jiu-jitsu was huge for me because it taught me how to predict my opponent, to predict the probability of my opponent's next move. By knowing the outcomes. I know if I go left, he's going to go right. If he goes right, I got these three options. I got to watch out for that arm bar, this, that, and the other thing. So you start to develop these systems based off of the probability of your opponent's move. And I use that till this day on every single gardening move I do. And it's very data-based. I'm not a data guy, so I'm not going to show you guys data. Tad crushes it on data. That's his strength. That's not me. I use data. I probably have more data than anybody in this room. As much of, but again, it's not my strength, right? But if you want a functional business and you want to put your business hat on, nothing is more valuable than data. So if you're working with a lab, make sure you're picking your lab, like similar to Logan Lab. People pick Logan Labs because they're consistent. I pick the lab that tested my flower, not because they give me the highest results. I'm looking at the data because that data has value. And if they have inconsistent data, how valuable is it? If I send 10 lots off, let's just say I send the same bud tested 10 times, and it comes back, with a 10% gap, that data is worthless. It doesn't matter what science I use. If that data was collected by a shitty person, it's shitty data. All right, so let's make sure that if we're collecting data, that we're collecting valuable data. We're not just gathering numbers, all right? So back to my personal story, sorry. Kicked out of high school. I started this whole MMA career. I moved into One Kick's gym. It was a huge change for me. Small town kid, moved to Vegas. It took a sponsor to move me there. It took $3,000 from a sponsor in Pahrump, and this is all done play and trust. Ace Hardware was my first sponsor. They gave me $3,000. I was 16 years old. I won a couple jiu-jitsu tournaments. They gave me $3,000 to move to Las Vegas, where I lived inside the gym. That's where I met my beautiful wife, Quanine. She was a secretary there. She ran the gym, and that's where it all started. I built this beautiful fight career. I was crushing it. I was extremely, extremely, extremely talented at fighting. I was well blessed in the right place at the right time. My coaches did a very good job. I got to the WEC at a young age. I was a world champion in WEC. They took me to the UFC right away. For a minute there, I was all the fucking hyped. I outranked John Jones. I'm not sure if that name means anything to you, but that is literally the greatest martial artist of all time. Yeah, that's in a weird way. I mean, for a brief moment in time, I outranked that motherfucker. So that was kind of cool. Is what is though. Um, but through no fault of my own, and I'll explain this, my MMA career was just yanked from me. It was my first love. I loved everything about it. I love martial arts till this day. It's nothing competes with martial arts for my heart. Nothing. All right. And it was ripped from me. So I know how a lot of these people feel, or you people feel, these legacy farmers who, grew up generation after generation, and then all of a sudden these regulations changed, and all of a sudden everything was just taken away, and you did nothing wrong to deserve it. I've been there. And for me, it was a blood test. 2007, they found an antibody in my blood, a hepatitis C antibody, not the virus, the antibody. So I'm telling you guys this, is I've never told anybody this. Nobody, not even Joe Rogan knows this. And it suspended me. It literally ruined my career. For a year and a half, in the peak of my career, I was suspended because what the doctors believed was that if you had the antibody for hepatitis C, that you had hepatitis C, because that's how they were taught. But that's not necessarily the case. That was old science. New science had proved that wrong. Now there's RNA, DNA testing. So when they ran my blood under RNA, DNA testing, they found no virus. So what it showed was that the elephant in the room was that I had come in contact with the virus, my body was able to defend against it, and I produced antibodies. Those antibodies were left behind, and the virus was no longer. But in the regulations for fighting, the regulations said that if you tested for antibodies, and this doctor vouched for it, and all this stuff, it was a nightmare. It took a year and a half of my life. I had to go to all the best doctors in the world, and I had to change the fucking regulations, okay? That's the bottom line. For me to fight, I had nothing wrong. I had to prove that their science was wrong, that there was better science, and the regulations changed. It took a year and a half of my prime, okay? Came back, wasn't the same, fought with injuries, and eventually just had to kind of call it. I saw the probability of my career, the direction it was going based off of the people I knew who were doing it, and the way I fought, I would have been up here today. Motherfucker. Like, that's how I would have been talking if I would have kept fighting. So I made this smart call. I was like, man, I'm 24 years old. I got a shitload of energy. I'm gonna fucking apply this to something else. So I completely walked away from MMA for fucking 8, almost 10 years. Cold turkey. I mean, something I did every single day, all day, done. It was crazy, just completely dove into cannabis. So let me back up a little bit, actually. How I found cannabis, though, was after I retired from MMA, I was broken, both mentally, physically, and then cannabis was my sustainable pain management. I knew I had chronic pain that was going to riddle me for the rest of my life. I didn't want opioids. Doctors love giving fighters opioids. It's like that's how you become best friends, I guess. I don't know. So I was looking for a sustainable way to manage my pain. And then I was reintroduced to medical marijuana. I grew up smoking weed my whole life. There wasn't a single time as a kid I'd never pot plant. I'll just be honest. My whole entire life since I was 12. I grew a pot plant at 12 years old before I smoked it at 13. And I grew in every single fucking year since then. What I'm getting at, though, is, what was I? Sorry. Anyways, so I was getting at is, oh, yeah, sorry. So I retired from cannabis. It's for medical reasons. At first, it was just to heal me. And I seen everything that was wrong with me, cannabis wasn't a fix. Depression, I didn't have to take opioids, so it was a solution. So I started smoking cannabis, started growing my own cannabis, got my card immediately. She forced me to do it. And I was stoked. My first crop, people were fucking stoked. I was getting all this good feedback, and I was growing hydro. And I slowly had this progression from hydro to cocoa to super soil, and I was just constantly chasing what was best. As I was going, I was like, this could be done better. This could be done more natural. This could be done this, this could be done that. And ultimately got to bottle-fed organics, did that for a while. I had my whole little progression. And then I was eventually introduced to living soils and permaculture. And that's when it fucking clicked. I was like, holy shit, dude, like, the planet is sick. That's why we're all fucking sick. It's because this fucking planet is sick, dude. Like, you can't fix the people if it's without fixing the planet. So at that time, it's just kind of, this dream just fucking became reality. We're like, okay, I'm going to use cannabis as a gateway drug to sustainable farming, to regenerative farming. And that became my fucking life mission, honest to God. So that's not an easy mission either, I assure you. So take in mind, I'm at the end of a field fight career. My wife is paying the bills. She's letting me learn my new hustle. I'm dipping in the gray area. I'm trying to pay the light bill. But she floated shit for 5 years, dude, while I was sitting at home trapping, and I'm super thankful for that. And eventually. So eventually, we knew what was coming. We knew the market was coming. So I started preparing for it mentally. I was like, no, I could do this. So I started having a little 6-lighter. I ran it like it was a fucking 1,000-lighter. I had systems. I had one plant equaled, in my mind, 100. I started developing the system, and she started writing a business plan behind it. And then I took that business plan, and the whole industry was coming in, and Vegas was really, really popular. There was like all these big fucking celebrity names, and here I am, like this washed up fucking UFC fighter, like shit, I don't stand a chance out here, dude. Fucking Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah are fucking starting to grow, and all this crazy shit, So I went back from Vegas to my hometown, Pahrump, and that's when I found, just looking for an old building, that's when I ran into my original sponsors from when I was 16 years old. Their Ace Hardware had shut down during the recession. Home Depot had opened up. They had leased the front half of the building to a Goodwill, but the back half of it was just a rusty old lumber yard. So keep in mind, I'm a cage fighter. I have no skills outside of cage fighting, okay, guys? So just being from Pahrump, ran to the right people. Next thing I know, I'm in a room, and my former sponsor walks in. And he's kind of shocked. I'm kind of stoked. And I give him this little pitch, like, "Hey, man, I really like to rent your lumber yard. I got this idea." And these are like super conservative. They're all general contractors, super conservative, never smoke weed type people. And I told him, I was like, "Listen, man, I told him my story. I was like, I found this way to grow weed organically." I kind of explained to him what that process was and how no one else at the time was even considering doing it. And one thing led to another. I left that meeting, and before I even got home, he called me. He was like, "Hey, man, I'm going to put a team together, and I want you to be our grower. We'll all go in equal." So he put 4 general contractors together, local general contractors together, including myself. And then basically I drew up on graph paper. Again, I don't know how to do CAD or anything cool like that. So on graph paper, I drew out some lines on the rooms, and I was actually at the time, I was real good friends with Matt Davenport, and he helped me put a soil mix together and order some inputs and all our stuff. And I designed the facility, they built it, and with 24 mother plants in the business plan, I became equal partners in a company that's worth close to $40 million today. I'm super proud of that. We started with only 1.5, though, just to be clear. So it started a 12,000 square foot grow with $1.5 million. It's a lot of fucking money, no doubt, but we started with LEDs, so that was a big chunk of that. All right, so let me look at my notes real quick, make sure I'm not forgetting anything good. Ladies and mom. I'm right on point,
Steve,
dude.
try to keep that mic as close to your mouth as possible.
You got it, Tyler. I haven't looked at these notes, and I'm right on fucking point, dude. I'm actually pretty stoked. So back in the day, I didn't have a lot of teachers either. There was no Instagram. There was no Elaine Ingham course. There was no soil doctor offering lessons. There was no soil summits back then, at least that I know of. Maybe people like Tad and would have to go to actual agriculture events and learn things about other crops and then try to reapply it to cannabis. And that was the only thing we can do back then. Real quick, I just want to point some out too. Everybody's hating real heavy on fucking bro science. Shit made me a fucking millionaire, dude. So you can hate on it all you fucking want, dude. And what I mean by that is there's 2 kinds of sciences, okay? So you have science, and let's just say real science, traditional science. You go to these universities, and that science tends to be paid for a little bit by a certain person that wants a certain outcome of that science. So that science isn't really as pure as we'd all like to believe it is. Now, I'm not speaking for all science. I'm just saying a lot of the time. Okay, where I feel like bro science, for lack of a better word, and I'm not saying all bro science is good, but I feel like a lot of bro science came from a good place. It was science in its beginning stages. It was science by people who weren't trained to do scientific experiments. But then Jeff Lowenfeld's book came out, and I was like, okay, now I get to take all this bro science, and I get to cross-reference it with Jeff Lowenfeld's book, and I kind of started narrowing down the things, the do's and don'ts, and that's kind of how I weeded out the bro science early on. Because early on, it was fucking lumper dog or coots, fucking blue jay, mountain. There was very few people, and it was forum-based, and I'm not sure if you guys remember the forums, dude, but it was hard as shit to get information on the forums, dude. I wasn't very technologically advanced back then. So what I ended up doing mostly, especially in the design of my facility and my system and how I run my rooms, is I primarily look to nature. Like there's things that I include that nature does in my facility that I still don't know why I do it or what I benefit from it. It doesn't cost me any money, but I know it's going to serve a purpose one day. And I know future Steve, because he's way smarter than me and has way more experience, I know he's going to figure it out. So I'm trying to set him up for success. So a lot of the things I do are literally straight taken from Mother Nature. Like I know that sounds cheesy, but that's literally all I had to look at. And I really recommend everybody consider that when designing a space. Well, and consider that the permaculture principles is a really clutch thing to use as well. But always look to nature, look to these natural systems, because in my mind, when you look to nature and you look to these natural systems, then you have more sustainable, more eco-friendly solutions. If I try to say I'm smarter than nature and recreate the wheel, and then I have a problem, then now I have to fucking buy some bullshit to deal with it. Now I gotta support a business I don't wanna support. Where if I'm modeling after nature and I have a problem, I could look to nature. How did nature deal with that problem? Russet mites don't rule the fucking world. Why? Root aphids aren't on every fucking root. Why? Well, what are those reasons why? So I started to look at those things and I started to apply that into my full system. And it's a full system, guys. It's not just a cash crop system, so I'll explain that later. Doing pretty good. So one thing I had to do, and I'm gonna keep touching on this, when I first started my business, again, I came from MMA. I didn't have any people, I wasn't very good at talking to people. I wasn't very good at really anything but hurting people, I'll be honest. But I knew I had to change, so I put myself in uncomfortable positions. I would go to the local meetings when they're discussing regulations and they're discussing zoning and they're discussing all these things. I was around people that I wasn't comfortable to be around, and it paid off because I met the right people. I said the right things at the right time, and I influenced things when they needed to be influenced. So I just want to put that out there. So when I was starting GLP, construction was a big one, all right? I learned so much on that one build that honestly, if I were to do it now, keep in mind I did 8 years ago, and I haven't built a grow since. Can you imagine what my next grow is gonna be like? It's gonna be pretty fucking sick. I'm looking forward to it. So 8 years ago during construction, we opened up with some shit that ain't no one ever done before, at scale. We started in a regulated state with microbial testing indoors with LEDs and raised bed living soil. Now that's a very common thing today, but 8 years ago, it was not, you guys. Raised beds indoors, living soil by itself, let alone fucking LEDs in a regulated state, it was a recipe for disaster. Instagram was new, but I assure you, I was getting memed. There was fucking, no one had anything nice to say about what I was trying to do. And then when I did it, nobody knew what it was. Okay, why is your weed better than his weed? It's fucking purple, it's the same name, what's the difference? And I realized nobody knows what living organic soil is. So I branded my brand around this whole living soil concept of save the world, be regenerative as you can indoors, but no one knew what it was. So then I had to work on educating people. I had to go out there and again, put myself in really fucking uncomfortable positions, especially when it was medical only. I put myself in rooms like this and people would be asking medical questions. I'm not a fucking doctor. I can't speak out of my experience. It was really uncomfortable. But for years, I went there and I explained the difference between living soil and hydro, this natural expression versus this force-fed expression. Talking about algal blooms and the impact on the environment that these things do. And I'm preaching to all these bud tenders, just trying to get it out there so to help them sell my product, help them distinguish or know the difference, you know. And you have to. And don't think that we're done. Don't think that we're past that, guys. We're all in this room right now. We all know living soil. We all know the difference, at least to some level than most of us, I imagine. But I just went to Europe a couple weeks ago. And when we asked for organic cannabis, the look we fucking got at every single shop was just, it was crazy. It was just, it's a plant, is what they would say, as in a plant is organic. And it just shows a disconnect. So like we're all over here talking to each other and we're arguing over whose technique's the best, but meanwhile, there's a whole world of people that have no idea the difference and the solutions that this can offer the rest of the world. So I just make sure you guys are putting yourselves in uncomfortable positions and that you guys haven't given up on education. Because it seems like, at least in Nevada, as soon as it went from medical to recreational, education was right out the window. Now it all went sales driven. If it ain't 20% or above, you ain't fucking selling it. I think it is a little higher than that nowadays, but whatever. So just make sure you guys are aware of some of those things. Now, 8 years ago, I just want to be clear, I was out there. I was sitting where you guys are, not knowing hardly anything. Literally, Jeff Lowenfels and the forums were all I fucking had at that time. So just know that if your heart is good and you're in the right place, you're going to learn what you need to know to be successful as long as your intentions are pure. I assure you that. Now I wanted to talk about people who have helped me real quick. So like I said earlier, Matt Davenport, I knew him before GLP existed. Me and him worked on a soil recipe together. He helped me order a lot of my original inputs, helped me structure our original SOPs around USDA guidelines because we didn't know what the fuck else to, build them around. We kind of took a break on our friendship once the money started coming in and shit got weird, kind of human nature. But we're friends now to this day. And then they introduced me to Dem Pure, or Dragonfly Earth Medicine, Josh and Kelly. They kind of, when they came into my life, for those of you who don't know or aren't familiar with them, but they were guerrilla growers. They would hike up into remote areas, and they're not going to pack fucking hundreds of pounds of fertilizer. So they started to learn how to use the plants around them. So they were really big on plants feeding plants. And they were the first person to really introduce me to that concept. I didn't really even know about dry amendments and stuff like that hardly. And then there was I'm actually gonna put this out. I've never told anybody about this. Do you guys remember when Coots and Dragonfly and the whole malted barley thing popped off? How many of you guys know that started in my facility? My second cycle, my third room, I had my first failure. Lost the whole fucking room, and it was a based off of a tainted malted barley. Is what we tested every single fucking input, and when the malted barley got tested, the microbes found on the malted barley were the exact fucking, almost not to the fucking T, but it was the fingerprint of microbes that failed my fucking cannabis. We tested multiple sources of malted barley. Who shit in your malted barley? Someone here earlier knew Innie. It was actually Innie who said that. It's the first time I ever heard Innie's curse. He's like, "Who shit in your malted barley?" Can you imagine Innie saying that? And dude, that was huge for me. I was like, to give up malted barley, my plants love praying after malted barley. No way, dude. So anyways, it was a hard one for me. And Josh and Kelly being, again, they're that fungal network, dude. They're connected to so many people, and they seen this as a problem for everybody was using malted barley at this time. And I had to tell them my concerns, and they're like, "Steve, we got to tell people." I'm like, dude, I'm nobody. I got $1 million in this facility. If people find out that I'm failing, you're gonna tank my brand. You tell whoever you want, but keep me the fuck out of it, And they did. They went and they screamed at the top of the mountains, dude. And they kept me out of it, dude. They never once dropped my fucking name. Dude. None of you knew I had anything to do with it. And to me, that's fucking solid, dude. So just don't downplay that. Third person I started working with was Scott and Sarah. So I started going to a lot of these conventions. I started getting to a lot of weird, crazy-ass ideas. And then Scott and Sarah, through actually Josh and Kelly, actually hooked me up with them. We're like, hey, dude, you should talk to these people. They're into some really cool shit. I linked up with Scott and Sarah from Crested Soil Services, and they kind of pulled me back into the, hey, this is a little bit more science over here. You should come over here and learn with us for a little bit. And I did this whole soil food web thing, and it was a fucking game changer. They were the first people I brought into my facility. Every time I brought someone into my facility, like, oh, I can make this better. What you need to do, and they would give me this fucking bucket list of impossible shit to do and all these things to change. And I'm like, you're fucking, yeah, dude, for sure, yeah. But then when when Scott and Sarah came in, they're like, yeah, you need to quit doing all this dumb shit and compost extract. Compost extract. And I was like, what? Well, look at this cool-ass bubbly tea I got, dude. It's all over the place. Look how alive it is, you know. You smell that? It's alive. Anyways, so they straightened me out. We worked together for a while, and I enjoyed the time we did get to work together. But, you know, everything seems to have an expiration date. And then eventually I linked up to the Elaine course. How many people in here have taken the Elaine course? Okay, when people ask me what they can do to get in this industry or what the best thing they can do as far as soil food web goes, the easiest answer will be, you could ask me anytime, any day for the next 100 years, I guarantee you get the same answer. Take the fucking soil food web course. Learn how to use a microscope. Learn the basics. I'm not saying you have to agree with everything Elaine says. I mean, this is such a crazy world of microorganisms. I mean, she's in the early stages of her own research. Then she's looking at people like this to take it to the next level, you know? So people like you to take it to the next level. She started something that she's looking forward to us finishing. It's by no means is it perfect. But I really do think it was the most influential thing that I've ever done as far as growing with this type of system, was just understanding the microbes, being able to look at the soil, assess my own soil in real time. Compost, not have to send it out for a while. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on people who send out soil samples. It's good to get a third party every once in a while, no doubt. But you should be able to look at your own soil. Okay, there's nothing more valuable than to look at it under a microscope and actually see what's happening, what effect that you just did is causing. So I highly recommend it, guys. Yeah. Well, I can't even speak highly of it. She changed. I did the old one. It was like 10% less. I guess there's a new one. I re-enlisted in it, but then I got lazy and didn't do it yet. But I'll do it eventually. Ganja Gill. I wish I have a slide for that motherfucker, dude. I'll tell you right now. He's a time traveler, dude. Don't believe him. We were in fucking Amsterdam, and we were at a 15th century art museum, and there that motherfucker was, in the middle of a picture holding a musket, dude. It's super awesome. Clear as day, Ganja Gill, dude. Anyways, brought Ganja Gill on, and he taught me about washing, making hash. And that actually taught me a lot more about my cannabis strains than I thought I already knew everything about my plants. You know, I rub them every day, I smell them, I feed them. What more can this guy teach me about my strains? And I learned a shitload about the weed I was growing just by washing it, by pressing it, and all these things. So that was a really huge thing, and I'll get into that later. Another one was a soil doctor. I'm not sure how many of you guys use him here, but I feel like Brian he's fucking dope. Like any agronomist, his recommendations are going to start off with sulfate, 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 sulfate. But if you explain to him, like I do, like, hey, I'm Dragonfly Pure, I can't use bone meals, I'm trying not to use sulfates, what are your options? He is organically minded. He will help you find a solution that you're comfortable using. So I like Soil Dr. Bryant. He's always been good to me. Stink Angel, he's my bug buddy. I know Susan Bug Lady, she's kind of like the top dog right now. But I hope Matt will be in 20 years, dude. I'm rooting for him, so I'm gonna support that dude. All right, so that's kind of my startup, guys. Kind of the story of the people who helped me, how I got where I'm at. Now I'll start to kind of talk about some recent issues I had. Now, I asked people online what they wanted me to talk about today, and everybody was clear they wanted me to talk about cover crops and roly-polies. So I will get there, okay? But there are some things you guys need to hear, and I apologize, I gotta be the one to fucking tell you, but I gotta tell you about a story, okay? So I ran successfully for almost 7 years. We were the first cultivators in the state. We worked with the regulators. They were in my facility literally every day the first 6 months. Every lab was going through there. It was a beautiful time for me because I'm working with PhDs. I'm learning shit that nobody else was having a chance to learn yet. I had such an advantage. We developed the system for years. Everything was approved, SOPs approved. Originally started off with DPBH, was our Department of Health, was the people who were regulating us. And then it switched to taxation, Department of Taxation. They were cool. For years, we ran with them, dude. They loved it. Everybody, we were the shining star in Nevada. Like, we were everybody, like, we're the perfect example. Like, we've never had a single write-up in 7 years. And then in 2021, they switched handlers again. They formed the CCB, the Cannabis Compliance Board. It bit us in the ass immediately. I was making hash with Ganja Gill. I wanted to make my first drop. And so originally, you had to have a production license to make hash, and then they changed it to where cultivators can do ice water or solventless extraction. So we geared up. We built a $500,000 lab room or extraction room, fridges, fucking presses, washes, fucking the whole nine. CCB comes on. We go to sell our first hash line. They tell me, no, you can't do that. After they approved all of my equipment, they said, you can't do that. So I had to quit making hash to give me 1 year to sell all my hash. So I don't make hash anymore. I won all the awards in Vegas for the year we did, but I'm no longer making hash. And you'll see why that happened. So then I get my first inspection by the CCB. It was October 21. Okay, now keep in mind, we've never had a single infraction. Single. Maybe like, hey, you got some tape hanging from your roof and it's fixed before they left type shit. This CCB came in, and these people were very, very knowledgeable as far as traditional cultivation goes. They worked in some other farms, synthetic farms. And when they walked to my facility, they literally said no to everything. They were like, fucking roly-polies? No way, dude. Fucking worms? No way, dude. Fucking, what are all these plants in your soil? No fucking way, dude. No way the USDA would ever recognize a system like this. You need to pull all this soil out. You need to sterilize it. You need to put I recommend you put tables down, individual pots. These plants cannot be sharing beds because they're going to be spreading disease. How are you mitigating the spread of disease? All these different things and I'm like freaking the fuck out. Like, holy shit, dude, these are I can't like tell them how to do their job. So I'm trying to be polite. I'm trying to they're telling me. You can't use compost, you can't do this. At one point, they told me I couldn't have worms in my beds. I said, I accidentally used the worm, to describe my beds, I accidentally used the word, those are worm bins. They're like worm bins, or recycling organic matter. Careful the fucking words you use, guys. Words have meanings. And when you say worm bins, there's regulations that are attached to worm castings. And if you don't follow those regulations, you're not compliant. So I fucked up and said the wrong thing. And then they started trying to apply all these worm casting regulations to me. So I'm like, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I meant I have worms in my bed. They're building soil. They're not making castings. They're making soil. And that's kind of how I had to get them off of that. They hate roly-polies. I know people are having a problem with them, and I'll get there later. They wanted me to remove every roly-poly and then sell it as if it has a value, but just not in my facility, I guess. They literally told me to call all the roly-polies over, however the fuck I was going to do that, catch them, and then sell them. Because they were a pest. It was scary, dude. Like, it was the most stressful time of my life, dude. Like, I already been through some ups and downs, and like, here I am as successful as ever, and these people are like, for no reason, I feel like, here's my bad blood test all over again. Like, all this shit's fucking, I have no control over this, dude. Like, fuck. Luckily, I got a fucking strong-ass wife, dude, and she kicks my ass into gear, and I just remembered I'm a fucking champion, dude. Like, there's no way these people are fucking beating me, dude. So I want to be, instead of being a world champion, my new goal for this is to become the world's champion. By helping these regulators better understand the problems and how what I'm doing offers solutions. And it wasn't easy. It cost me over $100,000 last year, basically to do what I have been successfully doing for the 6.5 years prior. Nothing changed. I mean, I had to take a break from some things, and I'll explain that. I had to quit my composting. I couldn't compost my cannabis leaves no more. They told me I couldn't do any chop and dropping. I had to remove rootstocks and things, which I didn't. I fought that one pretty hard. I was still fighting it. I couldn't use my cannabis compost that was already made because it contained cannabis, and cannabis is federally illegal, and I'm trying to run an organic system, and how could it be organic if there's cannabis in it? Cannabis isn't organic, and this whole fucking, yeah. So we adapted. We had to adapt. We had to find new ways. Compost extract saved my ass again. And we kind of limped through last year, but I wasn't going to take a loss. I was determined to, every year, like as a fighter, every day, my goal when I was a professional athlete is I wanted to wake up every day better than I went to sleep. That was my goal. When I woke up, I was a little bit better than the day before. That's how I have my business model at GLP. And you can look at our books. Every year, we're doing this consistently. I wasn't going to fucking let him break that. I wasn't going to fucking plane out. I wasn't done. So we kept hitting it hard. I focused more on maintaining the life in the soil versus killing the life in the soil. So I had to dial my fucking watering, and I had to dial my top dressing. I really had to dial my system in. And I'm happy to say a year later, we actually maintained that growth. Last year, the hardest year in cannabis, and this is hard for me to say out loud, was our best year to date. Now, I didn't... probably didn't profit as much due to the price that we had, due to the amount of money we had to give the CCB, but on paper, we're still looking good. But I learned some things that through them, what they made me do that they didn't intend, that I kind of have to eat crow today and take some things back that I said years ago, because I did learn some better practices throughout all this. Again, I'm gonna take the good with the bad regardless, okay? Okay, so the state came in. Keep in mind, they're telling me I can't compost. They're telling me I can't chop and drop. They're telling me no teas, all these different things. Meanwhile, I finished that year with a 99.9% pass rate. It had to have been the highest in the state. I'd never verified it, but I couldn't find anybody who had a higher pass rate. I'm sorry, 99.8. This year, I finished 99.9. But they were a problem. They were literally... that we're still dealing with it. So like the compost thing, I still can't compost. Now a year later, our petition, so we're petitioning regulations, okay? Actually, let me back up. What I learned through all this was to be more proactive and not reactive. And again, I need to continue to put myself in those uncomfortable positions and make sure that I'm still talking to these regulators, we're talking to these politicians. You have to understand, like Joji was saying, you gotta understand how the wheelhouse works, man. So like this year is the legislative session. So the year they switched the hash rules, the year they switched the composting rules, that was a legislative session year that I wasn't really aware of. I'm not really too political savvy. Some people snuck some shit in some bills that fucked me. So this year, I spent $50,000 on fucking environmental lobbyists to make sure they're up in fucking northern Nevada and they're looking out for my best interests. Now, I'm not saying you guys all spend $50,000 on fucking environmental lobbyists, but you guys might want to consider putting a fucking hat together and getting some people to chip in, because if people aren't there looking for your best interest, don't fucking bank on getting it, guys. There's corporations that are fucking spending millions sending lobbyists to these events to make sure that they get their agenda passed, that they get their things met. So we just need to be more proactive as an industry and make sure that we're not just sitting back like, okay, this is how it is too. Let's be honest. Weed makes us comfortable. Okay, so we're all sitting back, comfortable, and just waiting for these things to present themselves. That's not how it works, guys. That's how we're going to end up being the victim, okay? We need to be more proactive. We need to be out there. We need to be talking to these regulators. We need to be talking to these inspectors. We need to be paying these lobbyists to make sure that they're looking out for our interests, the planet's fucking best interest, okay? So I highly recommend that. I know this isn't the crowd that's like, yeah, fucking politics, but I really recommend that we start playing that fucking role, because once it's gone, we ain't getting it back, guys. Like, I mean, once whoever gets control of this industry starts making billions of dollars, if you think you're gonna be able to change regulations to take it back from them, you're fucking high, dude. It's not gonna fucking work, dude, all right? So just be more proactive, get involved. I'm not from here, so I can't recommend any lobbyists or any events or nothing like that. But if you guys know anybody in Nevada that wants to stay connected, let me know. I'm going to tell a story, too. Actually, they're watching. Probably should tell this one. So I'll skip that. they're watching me too, guys, just to be clear. Like when we get our write-ups, they quote me on Instagram, they quote me on YouTube. So just like today, yeah, so just be clear. If you guys ask me a tough question and I don't answer it, it's not because I might not have the answer, but just ask me after the cameras are off, all right? And basically, basically what that means, what I'm basically saying is, I remember actually Kevin Jodry told me this. I'm not sure if he's still here, but his son's a lifter, a weightlifter, and he knew some Russian coaches. And I remember he told me this Russian coach told him something, and this is kind of my message as far as this part of the speech goes. He asked a Russian coach, like, I can't remember the exact question, like, what does your sport mean to you? What's your responsibility for your sport or something like that? You know how Russians are. And the guy's answer was, my job is to build the sport and fill it with champions. So we need to build this industry and fill it with champions. Because I guarantee you, corporate America is not thinking of that. Okay, guys? So just make sure that we build this industry and we fill it with champions. All right, guys? That's really important. What I learned through this process as well is you got to have a fucking SOP for everything. Standard operating procedure. If, like everything, washing your tea brewer, making your tea, applying your tea, cleaning your floors, cleaning your lights. Every single thing that you do, you better have a piece of paper that gives a basic 1, 2, 3. Don't know why they care so much, but they do. Now, a couple things that I think everybody should be aware of with a couple of the things that they threw at me. And those are the things that I want to solve because it's everybody's problem. So, like, I guess the first one would be roly-polies. Now, I don't have a problem with roly-polies. I'm going to share how. I don't know exactly. I'm gonna tell you guys what I think helps me. I don't know for sure. I've only grown really in this one grow, so I've never grown in your guys' grow, so I can't say 100%. But the reason I wanted to touch on this is because if an agent, USDA, state agent, whoever, if they go in 100 grows, and in 99 of those grows, they see plants getting fucking eaten by roly-polies, that's a pest. Now they walk into my grow, and they see a thriving ecosystem with 0 roly-poly damage. They don't care. They already seen 99 before they came there that they did see it. So now I gotta show them an SOP on how I'm gonna eradicate and control and all these things for that pest. And if they come back over and over again, they continue to see roly-polies on my floor, I'm likely to get shut down. So that's why this is a problem. These little things that to us, it doesn't matter, a little nibble on a leaf, but these regulators, that's enough for them to shut you down if they choose to. So I just want to talk about, I'm gonna start off talking about roly-polies. That was actually one of the biggest things people asked me on Instagram when I asked them what they wanted me to talk about. You gotta kind of understand what roly-polies are. A common name for them is woodlouse. That's half the answer. Okay, they like moist, carbon-rich, woody environments. I'm gonna say it, but like 90% of the people I see having problems with roly-polies have a mulch layer that consists of like 3 leaves and a twig. That's not a mulch layer, guys. That's 3 leaves and a twig. All right, you're not creating the habitat that they like. They like moist environments with carbon-rich wood to eat. Okay, we're giving them a bare soil, and then we're dropping fucking heavy on them, and they're fucking eating all this fucking green leaves, and they're blowing up and reproducing faster than we can fucking sweep them off the floor. So consider this. Top your beds with fucking wood, wood mulch. Give them what the fuck they want to eat. It's going to create a moist environment, and one of the biggest things that they're looking for isn't just a food source, it's water. People don't have mulch on their soil. Their top of their soil is dry. They're eating green water leaves, not because of the green chlorophyll or the food in them. They're eating them for fucking water. So if you keep a good mulch layer full of wood, I doubt they're even going to travel up your plants, guys. Another thing that helps, you guys see me do it, anybody who follows me, I got prune the shit out of my plants. I'm not letting the leaf touch the ground. I'm not baiting them, dude. Like, if they want a fucking leaf, they're going to have to climb fucking 10 stories to get it. another thing the state taught me, and I'm going to eat some crow on this one, because I was a huge advocate for this, and I actually fought it like up until like 2 months ago, because I realized the benefits from not chopping and dropping. Guys, I was a huge advocate of this. And that's why I don't like speaking on camera, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to say some shit today that I'm going to regret in 5 years. And I said this, I was huge on this. And this is, I guess, theory, bro, science, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But my theory is this. In nature, you do not see an abundance of green leaves full of fucking nutrients dropped earlier mid-season. When a plant naturally drops those leaves, it's usually late in the season after it's sucked every fucking thing out of them. Like, it's dropping yellow leaves, not fucking fully fucking waxed out, healthy green fucking leaves. And I kind of look at it like a compost pile. What happens in a compost pile if you add too much nitrogen? That shit blows the fuck up, dude. You get a really hot fucking pile really fast. It's going to speed up their ability to replicate, to reproduce. I have a feeling that's going on with fucking roly-polies. I think you guys are feeding them too much fucking gas versus too much nitrogen versus carbon. They're carbon whores. Give them some fucking wood, slow them down. That's the biggest thing I could say. What we're always going to run into on the indoors is we don't have natural predators. We can't release lizards, they have salmonella. You can't release frogs, they got salmonella. That's an instant fucking fail. That's a bad fail too. They'll actually like send people out to your facility and shit. Can't have birds. You can't have anything, any apex predator that's above the roly-poly that's gonna eat it. It just doesn't really work indoors. So for me, and again, this was a state regulation that I thought I fucking missed. Early on, being the first one, we had to build everything 6 inches off the ground. Food regulation. I was talking to you guys about that earlier. It was stupid. 6 inches off the ground, everything in our facility has to be. A bucket, curing, 6 inches off the ground, fucking anything. But what that did was, by chance, now when my roly-polies fall off my bed, they can't get back on. So now, my biggest weapon for roly-polies is a fucking broom. They fall off, I sweep them up. That's my natural predator. That's my control mechanism right there. I get a little bit of roly-polies on my floor every day. Cool. I added an SOP to where my floors get cleaned morning and night. It's easy now. And the states don't want to see that. If they see a roly-poly on your floor, you need to show them, hey, I clean my floors morning and night. They'll shut the fuck up. So, I mean, that's pretty much my thing with the roly-polies is they want water, they want wood, they need mulch layer, and I would highly recommend not feeding or chopping, dropping green leaves. I'm going to use that as a play into how I top dress, and I have a very unique system of top dressing. I've never heard anybody else use it as far as how I do it, and it kind of plays into this. I top dress early as possible. Before I flower, I'm done. I usually have about 2 to 4 weeks before I flip where I can top dress. And the reason I don't flip into top dress is because, one, I don't want to be risk getting any materials, any dusty materials on my plants. But second, I don't want any open degradation on top of my soil sporulating, contaminating my room. I want to minimize that. I want to keep as much as the biology in my soil under my mulch layer. So that's a really, really fucking big thing. Now, when I took the first Elaine Ingham course, she had a lady, and I'm not sure if she's even in this room, it's an older lady, a worm farmer lady, giving a whole example on how to grow worms. And one of the things that she said was don't feed your worms more than they can eat in 3 days, because the egg of a pest would take that long to get to this next life cycle. So if it's already a fucking larva, it's going to take the 3 days to get the next life cycle. It's a pretty common number for them to get out of control. But let me back up. Flies, fungus gnats, a lot of those things, mostly fungus gnats, let's use that for an example, will lay their eggs in your top dressing. You have this caked out fucking top dressing. You put too much, it's fucking anaerobic, it's all fucking hard and crusty. Fungus gnat lands in there, fucking drops some fucking eggs. Your worm can't get to it before that fucking egg makes it to the next cycle, then that larva makes it to the next fucking stage, and next thing you know, you have flying fucking gnats everywhere reproducing, all right? Don't top dress more than your worms, your beds can eat in 3 to 5 days. That's my rule. So, and I found that number over trial and error. I know what it is for my system. I'm not even gonna throw the number out there for you guys. Figure that shit out on your own. Some questions I'll say no to only because they're more valuable if you learn them yourself. It's not because I have a secret sauce, because if I give it to you, you won't appreciate it and you won't fucking even take it into consideration. Some things are better learned hard, okay? But through trial and error, I learned what my soil could eat in 3 to 5 days. And if I don't over top dress my soil, I don't have fungus gnats. If I over top dress my bed by a half a cup of a 3-part dry mix, I get fucking insane fungus gnats. Then I have to play with the water, dry them out, nematodes, the whole fucking Bassiana if you can, all that shit. So the best way to avoid that problem is, again, 3 days. Whatever your soil can eat in 3 days. Back to the leaves. Don't chop and drop while you're in flower. And this is for multiple reasons. And that's including your cover crop. Okay, because again, we're going to create open degradation in the flowering cycle. Things are going to be fucking sporulating all over our fucking buds, and then we're going to have a higher probability of failing. Okay? And on top of that, I hear people all the time like, oh, no-till weed has fucking black ash or this, that, or the other thing. A lot of the times when you have a no-till weed and it has a bad taste or black ash, and the guy's like, dude, it's fucking water only, dude. I stopped watering, water only all through flower. Yeah, but at week 3, you just fucking chop and drop fucking 20 pounds of clover on top of your bed. Like, what the fuck did you think that was gonna do? So you just created a food source that you just fed your fucking plants. Now your weed tastes fucking green and you wonder why. So don't chop and drop in the flower cycle if you're trying to not feed your fucking soil. No, chop and drop early. So like, oh, I gotta talk about this. I didn't realize I was standing in front of. So I don't touch any of this in the flower cycle, and if I do, I remove it. Like I'm gonna get into the marigolds here in a second, but that's not something I would chop and drop and lay on top of my soil. That's something I'm gonna remove during flower. All right, guys? Where am I at? Let's talk about cover crops. So cover crops. I use one primary cover crop. I got rid of clover years ago. I had too many problems with it. It was too high in nitrogen. Again, nitrogen. Anytime a pest got on it, it blew the fuck up. Whatever pest it was, aphid, fucking clover mite, fucking thrip, whatever it was, I couldn't control it. More problematic than it was a solution. So I culled all the clover and went heavy mulch, wood, tried to think biochar a little bit too, all kinds of stuff. And I had more pest pressure on my plants. Once I removed the companion plants, they all just went right fucking up to my plants. And I was like, oh shit, so now I gotta rethink this. And that's right around the time I hooked up with Scott and Sarah, and they turned me on to dichondra. Dichondra is a mycorrhizae dominant plant that will keep the mycorrhizae colonies alive in your soil. Elaine Ingham's been preaching it for a while. Her whole side of the community are really familiar with it. It doesn't really serve a purpose other than keeping the mycorrhizae colony around, other than ground cover. It's not a nitrogen fixer. I haven't seen any pest suppression from it. Pests don't like it. It's not their favorite thing to eat. I've never seen anything blow up on dichondra. Shit'll linger on it. I mean, it's not anti-pest, but nobody wants dichondra. Another big one I use is chickweed. Chickweed has a really good texture to it. It's super fluffy. I've always liked it. It's super easy. You can just rip some of it off and just fucking plant it and it'll grow. It's pretty cool. But the dichondra will outcompete it. Dichondra is highly invasive in my system, and I love it. The only plants that survive my system are invasive plants because they get so crowded out and shadowed out. Nothing else can really compete with the cannabis. Another big one I use potatoes. Potato is the first plant I ever grew. It's a really cool plant, high in potassium. Potassium was always kind of like a limiting factor in my soil. It was one of the harder nutrients I had trouble maintaining in the system. So I just thought it'd be cool to experiment with throwing some purple potatoes in, see if they could tie up some potassium, slowly rot, put it back in, was kind of my goal. I figured it was going out the bottom of my beds, kind of like, I think it was Bill was telling earlier, how when you water it and it leads down and further. So I kind of assumed that was going on, so I figured I would try to tie it up and not fucking mop it up off the floor. So potatoes have been great. And one of the things that I do to select my cover crops is I release one plant at a time because I got to monitor this plant. If you throw fucking 20 new plants in your fucking cover crop fucking mix in and you ain't grown one of them yet, how the fuck are you going to monitor that? How are you going to, where's the science in that? So just make sure whatever you do, it's slow and small solutions. All right, guys? So dichondra's one, chickweed's one. I've done strawberries are great. I'm sorry, but the reason I do them is because the things I choose, I choose cover crops and plants that complete their life cycle in my system. I want shit that wants to be there. Okay, if I have to keep fucking replanting seeds over and over and over again, and if it serves a big enough purpose, I will. But to me, that's saying that this doesn't really belong in my system. It doesn't fit my timeline. It doesn't really belong. The cover crops that I use complete their life cycle, okay? And that's one of the main ways I judge if I'm going to continue keeping it in the system. And while we're there, let's just talk about that. Most people in this industry, I'm not speaking about you guys, but most people in this industry growing with living soil are concerned about one thing, and that's their cash crop. If you are only focused on your cash crop, then I'm sorry to say, you are not growing in a living soil. You're growing in a dying soil on life support. Does that make sense? It's dying, and then we're just inoculating it over and over and over again because we don't know how to keep it alive, because we don't care, because we're focused on the cash crop. How is that a living system? That's a dying system on life support, okay? If you want to grow in a living system, I recommend focusing on all the living organisms and completing their life cycle in a timely manner. So again, biology, mushrooms, all these things, whatever your cycle is, make sure it accommodates all those life forms. All right, guys, I highly recommend that. You're going to see a lot of good things if you do that. Let's go. Let's go. Oh, yeah, I guess I was skipping some shit. So marigolds, one of my first plants. I use it more as like a trap plant because I have the only real native pest. There's another thing I want to point out real quick. People always ask me how I get away with what I get away with. You guys are here in a highly grow area. There's grows, farms, trees everywhere. There's a lot of outside pest pressure. I live in the fucking desert. There's not a whole lot of outside pest pressure. But if there is something, it's usually fucking strong as hell and it's really hard to deal with. But the only thing that we consistently get year after year in my area is the western flower thrip. Every year that fucker shows up. By winter, it's gone. I get it out of the facility, and then as soon as this fucking outside temps warm up, it starts making its way back in. So you guys have been, I imagine a lot of you guys have been following, but you probably don't realize what you've witnessed. But every year, because you're about to witness it right now, every year at this time, you will not see marigolds in my facility. I will pull every fucking trap plant out of my fucking facility. I am going to grow my cash crop. I'm going to minimize my cover companion plants all through spring. Minimize, not necessarily get rid of. And when I say minimize, I'm still going to mulch. I'm going heavy wood. How many people have seen me in the beginning of the year, every year, go from a green cover crop to a heavy mulch, wood mulch? You've noticed it. It happens. Go on my Instagram. This is a pattern, guys. Okay? And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm not trying to bring in what the fuck is outside. I'm not trying to bring something that's outside and welcome it indoors. You know, I'm trying to avoid it that time of year. So springtime, I'm very conscious on not attracting bullshit. Okay? And then in summertime is when I plant my marigolds. After spring, going into summertime, whatever made it in, now I want them on the marigolds, because it's a lot easier to fight a pest pressure or a pest or disease on your non-cash crop than it is your cash crop. I could fucking spray those marigolds with a fucking neem, a fucking blowtorch. I could cut them down, I could remove them without losing a single fucking dime. Those are all grown, all those seeds were grown right there in those beds. They didn't cost me anything. So just be aware. I think I said this earlier. A lot of people will use cover crops wrong, and then they'll judge them wrong. And I always use Einstein's thing. I believe it was Einstein that said, you can't judge a fish by how well it climbs a tree. By having things in their proper place, you're going to see their true potential. So if I were to take one of those fucking marigolds and hang it on my roof, it wouldn't grow very good. It's just a dumb example, but you get what I'm saying. But if I put it in the right place, it serves a good purpose. And what I mean by that, and again, y'all probably didn't notice, this picture right here, what do you see? Do you see marigolds in the back of my bed? There might be a little one, actually. No. You see marigolds in the walking aisles where I can monitor them easily. I'm not trying to create a system that's hard to manage. I'm trying to make shit easy, not harder. So we put them in the corner of our beds, closest to us, where I walk by them every day. If I walk up to that marigold and I see more thrips or pest pressure than I do beneficials, cool, bust out the blowtorch, cut it off, throw it in the fucking trash can. I don't even gotta fucking waste it in the metric system. It's a fucking plant. I can just throw it away. And then on top of that, so what I would recommend doing, another one, mint. I've been recently using mint too the last couple of years. And what I will do is, mint, bugs hate mint. Like very few shit wants to hang out on mint. I'll plant mint in the back of my beds. So nothing wants to hang on the back of my bed where I can't see it up against the walls. It's not a good place. It doesn't taste good over there. Everything rushes to the front of my beds where I can see them easily. So I got into ecosystems. My first attempt at controlling ecosystems was actually coral reef fish tanks. I got into coral reef fish tanks at 15 years old. Every time I'd win a prize fight, I'd spend every dime on coral. It was a really bad addiction for a while there. But one thing I learned is that a hard to clean fish tank is a dirty fish tank. An easy to clean fish tank is a clean fish tank. So make sure when you guys are setting up your grows, whether it's cleaning or just whatever your procedure is, make sure it's fucking easy or it ain't gonna get done right. You might get done right once or twice, but the harder you make it, the more you're setting yourself up for failure. So again, don't judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree. Put things in their proper place and watch them flourish. All right, guys? Okay, now I'm up here. All right, I want to actually call a couple more people too. You got Tad in the room. Tad's awesome, guys. Me and Tad actually, I never told him this, but he actually pushes me to be better. We're very like-minded, but we're also on very different sides of the spectrum in some areas. And he helps me not get comfortable. Comfort's bad, guys. When you get comfortable, you know what you do? You stop growing. In order for a crab to grow, it needs to get uncomfortable inside of its shell. And then it's going to go find a bigger shell and it's going to grow into that shell. So that uncomfort is going to promote growth, guys. Okay, so if you're in your comfort zone right now, I highly recommend, again, I've said it several times, get uncomfortable, guys. That's the only way that you're going to grow. He makes me uncomfortable, not in a bad way, because he's always pushing the... He's always pushing the envelope with data and science. He's doing things correctly. He's taking a proper approach to it. And I'm a champion. In my mind, I want to be the toughest motherfucker on the planet, you know? So I don't ever want to be the weakest link in the industry. I don't need to be the best. That's not my goal to be the best. My goal is to be my best, you know? But when I see people like him doing their best and taking it to the next level and always pushing the envelope, I can't help but get motivated by that and inspired by that in a weird, fucked up way, all right? I don't care what he thinks, but I believe that we were best friends in another life, and for whatever reason, me, him, and Jeremy don't hang out no more. But no, Tad brings up some really good points. Me and him kind of gone back and forth a couple times online, and people seem to think that I don't agree with him. No, I do agree with him. Everything he fucking says, I listen to. I just find a different solution than he did. That's the only difference. And if I see a lot of people will disagree with a guy like Tad, and just because they disagree with something small he said, they'll go the opposite. And then they won't listen to him at all. And that's the worst thing you can do. Don't just disrespect what he said. Listen to what the fuck he said, because it has value to it. I've never heard him say anything wrong. I just found different solutions, is all. So make sure you guys find that person that keeps you in check, that you can bounce ideas off of. Yes men are good every once in a while, but get rid of fucking yes men. You need people that challenge you both intellectually, fucking, and all that cool shit. I already said Dragonfly Earth Medicine, those people rock. We all know that. Blue mats. Let's talk about blue mats. Coming into this show, I was actually deathly afraid of anybody asking me about blue mats. And the reason is because Michael and then the guys over there, they're awesome. Sustainable Village, they're really nice people. But I had a really bad experience with Blue Monster early on. I was like one of the first guys to use them, and I didn't enjoy my experience. I still have nightmares of cleaning flooded grow rooms and shit. It's pretty like PTSD type shit. But what I saw today impressed me because they didn't hide from those problems. They tackled them. They found solutions to them. They kept pushing it. That's a good business. Like look at Tyler, for example. Years ago, I reached out to Tyler. I was like, hey, dude, fabric pots kind of suck for living soil, dude. That's drying my shit out. It's creating an issue. I need you to make fucking a couple hundred of these pots and beds for me. A different facility. And I was working for this facility in Vegas. I got ripped off really bad, long story short. And he did. And then he launched a whole fucking no-till bed based off it. And I was stoked with it. And then when I needed fucking bottomless pots, I called him. And he fixed that problem. So to me, when a business takes on those problems and they help find solutions, that's a good business to be a part of. Now, I'm not saying I'm in a hurry to plug a carrot into my 30-second cycle soil. I'm not in a hurry. But I'm going to give that company another chance because I see the effort that they're making, and I like that. Because as a business owner, I respect that. I like the capital amount. I'm going to start there. And I am going to put a carrot in my no-till, my veg bed. And I want to see their new manifolds and how those things work because I was one of the first people that started with Blue Moss and I did it horribly wrong. I mean, we were fucking jamming carrots everywhere. The more carrots, the more water, the more growth. I don't know what the fuck we were thinking. But there was a lot of fail points, and it wasn't very efficient. But I do think those guys mean well, and I do look forward to trying their shit out again. While I'm on the topic of watering, let's go ahead and tackle that real quick. Yes, I hand water. I am extremely efficient. Now again, I am going to try to bloom my system. I do have plans to semi automate and things like that one day, just to make it easier for my growers, but not to remove my growers. I can't really talk about the system yet because I haven't implemented it fully. And I'm really, 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 really excited about it, and I do plan on sharing it with everybody. So give me a little bit more time on that. In the time being, I hand water. And there's something I want you guys to know about hand watering. I can't tell you guys my watering schedule, okay? We have different soils. I have a 32 cycle fucking soil that has a different CEC than yours, different fucking, all around just fucking texture, everything, okay, guys? So for me to tell you how to water your soil, it would be highly, highly just not very smart for me to do. Different infiltration rates, all these things, okay? But one tip I can give you guys is don't overwater. Okay, and overwatering isn't necessarily, when I say that, I'm not saying by amount, I'm more or less talking frequency. So what I learned was that, again, I'm not going to give you like my secret recipe or anything, but what I basically, long and short, what I learned was, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say there's 5 days in the business week, okay? Let's say I'm going to give 5 gallons a day, okay? That's 25 gallons a week, okay? If I give 5 gallons a day, every single day, I'm reenacting a flood. I'm creating an anaerobic event, okay? And in those situations, over and over again, things like ciliates and all these, indicators of anaerobic indicators are going to start popping up. They're going to start reproducing, and they are not good at cycling nutrients. They are not the most efficient microbe in your soil. Okay, they serve a purpose. The catalyst pointed that out. Facultative, anaerobes, all these things. They have a time and place, but their time and place isn't 5 days a week on top of your soil. Okay, straight the fuck up. Okay, so now when we're approaching overwatering, again, frequency versus amount. Okay, so I could take that same 25 gallons, okay, because the amount wasn't too much. I watered 5 gallons a day, every single day, and I had fucking ciliates and fungus gnats and dry soil. But if I were to take that same 25 gallons and apply it differently, let's say I did 10 gallons on a Monday. I skip Tuesday. Maybe I do 5 gallons on a Wednesday and then 10 gallons on a Friday. Or maybe I just do 15 gallons on a Friday to get me through the weekend. Those are all real days. What I notice is I'm getting just as much water. And you got to watch the infiltration rate of your beds. So like when I say put 10 gallons down, I'm not saying 10 gallons. No, I'm saying, hey, fucking 3 gallons. Come back fucking an hour later or however long it takes for that water to infiltrate your soil, and all your soil is going to be different. I'm coming back whatever that time is. I'm going to do my second pass. We don't go more than we're not supposed to go more than 5. Every once in a while we'll get lazy. We'll do 6 gallons at a time. And we usually end up cleaning a quarter of a gallon off the floor when that happens. In my system too, we don't have trays. And when I say my girls are water ninjas, I have 2 female growers that run 3 of these rooms. When I say that they're water ninjas, I mean they're fucking water ninjas, guys. Like, we don't have trays. If they overwater a bed, they have to mop. And then we have to get a soil test, and they have to see what the fuck we just leached out of that bed potentially. So we avoid letting water hit the floor, period. In 8 years, I have flushed 0 times. Never. I test my soil, my salts get high, I back off of fucking products high in salt. No, ocean products primarily. No, I forgot those even existed until today. And I was really stoked on that tool, and I plan on getting one as soon as I get home. Because before I start playing with the Blue Mounts again, I want to get a baseline of where my girls are keeping my beds at before I try to introduce a new thing. So but I think it's a valuable tool.
Do you try to keep the bottomless pots at a different moisture content?
They're gonna be, but it's not something I try to do. And I am gonna get into the bottomless pots in a second, so we will get into that. But great question, thank you. Yeah, see, he's onto it, dude. All right, that's a good question, dude, and a lot of people are gonna disagree with this. I primarily catch all my AC and DHE water, and why I think that's important is because it's slightly acidic. It's like rain. And I don't have any deficiencies, anything. My system works really, really fucking well. And anybody who comes in that has hydro experience tells me I'm fucking crazy. People will tell me that's too expensive to filter DHE water. I disagree with that. You can get, I'm not sure if they make them anymore. What was that company called? Kagan? No. They have a carbon filter. What's that? Callaghan? No. Anyways, there's a really big sediment filter you can get that lasts like 2 to 3 years. It's not very expensive. You can get some pre-filters first, then get a charcoal filter. Then I recommend getting a UVC light to kill any microbes. You can catch it and then you can put it back in. I don't condition it at all. I don't add salts or C90, nothing like that. It's just straight up slightly acidic DHE water. And I live in the desert, so for me it's a big deal. You guys in California should all be fucking doing this, from what I hear. But I live in the desert on like one of the biggest aquifers from what I'm told in like the country or something like that. So water actually isn't even like that big of a deal to us in that particular town. Like, it is in Vegas, it is everywhere else, but it's really not for us. But I still respect it because I live in the desert. Great question, Ted. But if you're gonna do that, I highly recommend you check your equipment. Now, if you got some like fucking cheapo Cerna fucking DHU with fucking aluminum fucking everything, don't do it. Make sure you have solid copper coils. Make sure that in between rounds you're flushing your lines. You're like my rooms, I have an SOP from top to bottom. Every fucking light gets wiped down. Every DHU gets fucking cleaned out. Every line gets fucking flushed. I have a 1-day downtime. I harvest my final fucking strain on a Tuesday. I clean the room on a Wednesday. I plant it on a Thursday. And I've done that for 8 years, 32 cycles. I haven't missed a beat. And it's important, guys. So if you're not gonna flush your lines, if you're not gonna fucking check your coils, you're setting yourself up for failure. All right, so just do your due diligence before you jump on that ship, all right? LEDs. So that's another big one. I started with LEDs 8 years ago. We started with the Lumitex, that blurple shit. It was super fucking hard on the eyes. But man, I had like so many female plants versus fucking males. Like, every time I popped seeds, I thought it was a feminized pack. It was crazy. So that was kind of cool. I felt like the Lumitex light was one of the best LEDs ever made, other than that blurple spectrum. It was a solid fucking light, man. But then after time, we started having problems with it. Photo bleaching with those blurple lights with certain strains was a fucking nightmare. And then I started looking for it to switch out. I did a huge LED test run, Fluence, all these top competitors side by side. And then Phos actually hit me up. And I actually turned Foes down a year earlier. They showed me their first little prototype, and I kind of like laughed at them and shit. Like, why the fuck would I buy this light? Where are you guys gonna be here? You got a 5-year warranty, do you? Like, where are you gonna be in 5 years? You know, you're some nothing light company. And I kind of poked my now friend Brett a little bit, and he did the right thing. He took that all as constructive criticism. And he went hell-bent on building the dopest fucking lights on the fucking planet. And you guys might think they're too expensive. I hear people complain, and one of their sales reps at one time said, yeah, they could get 10 pounds of fucking light. Probably wasn't the best thing to say. But I'm telling you right now, dude, you'll be pressed to find a higher quality LED fucking light. And I guarantee you will not find a higher yielding fucking light. These guys, if you look at them, their personality, they like the best of everything. The nicest truck, the nicest car, the nicest watch. They are not going to build the cheapest light. They're based out of fucking Vegas, so I have a really good relationship with them, and they have always been there. And not just for me, for people I've hooked them up with, their customer service, like, you got a light go out, dude, they're going to give you a new light. Now what they've done is they've actually made multiple lights to compete with every light. So if you can't afford a big dog A3i, cool, they got little lights. They got lights for the home growers now. They got lights for every single application you could think of. Big greenhouses, small greenhouses, vertical. You want some side canopy pantry, anything you want, these guys can build lights of, and they will guarantee match your competitor's price. So if you give them a quote from your competitor and give them your grow space, I guarantee they'll meet or beat any other light company out there. I know I don't get paid by them, so it's cool, but I just want to make sure that they're there in 5-10 years to honor their warranty when my lights break. So that's why I try to push them. Which they always have. No, they're solid. I got nothing bad to say about those guys. And I see them get in trouble because they're being successful right now. They're the biggest light industry, company in the game right now. So they're getting targeted. Like Lux was shooting at them for a minute there, and people didn't know what was going on. And I knew what the fuck was going on. And fucking, they went bankrupt. They were trying to, anyway, they saw a threat and they tried to fucking, anyways. So LEDs in living soil. So there's some misconceptions with LEDs. She's good. Okay, guys. So I got a couple of things to talk about LEDs, but I do have a lot of experience with LEDs, so I hope you guys can appreciate this. There's some misconceptions with LEDs, and there's some things you got to consider if you're switching to LEDs, okay? I hear people say things like, oh, LEDs cause more transpiration. They're going to cause more dehumidity in your room. You got to get more more humidity in your room. You got to get more dehumidifiers. I heard these things. People say crazy shit like this. No, I don't think they do. I think what they do is they put less of a heat load on your room, and you actually use your AC less. Your AC is a dehumidifier. So if you're going to run LED lights, you either got to make sure that your AC either has like a dry pack on it, so where you can maintain those levels. It can run even though, anyways. Or you got to get more secondary dehumidification. You can't bank on your AC dehumidifying your room. Does that make sense? Without the heat load, your AC turns off, you lose half dehumidification. So if you go LEDs, make sure you have secondary dehumidification or that your AC can be used as a dehumidifier. All right, guys, because that's the problem that people are having. It's the heat load drop that kicks off the AC that adds the humidity, I promise. Okay. Another thing, if you switch to Fos lights, build another dry room. Straight the fuck up, build another dry room. I ran my facility for almost four years before switching to Fos. I used the same room, the same dry room for 4 years, no problem. My first cycle on Fos, I collapsed my dry room. The whole fucking room collapsed because of the added weight. This is not a joke. I had to build a second dry room. Now, it's like, oh yeah, you're bragging, dude. It sounds like a really good problem. Yeah, it is a really good problem. It's still a fucking problem, okay? And the problem with it is that was the first ripple that I caught. But there was multiple ripples, okay? So if you increase lights, you're gonna increase plant growth. If you increase plant growth, what else is gonna increase? Now the transpiration is gonna increase. So now you also get more dehues in your room. So if you're gonna grow bigger plants, you gotta have bigger dehues. If you're gonna grow bigger plants, you gotta have more dry space. If you're gonna grow more weed, you gotta have more trimmers. And these are all things that like, oh shit, how would we not think of that? How would we not think of that? They kept biting us in the ass in this ripple effect. So if you're gonna switch LEDs, make sure you're thinking, okay, how much more plant am I gonna grow? How much more transpiration? How much more humidity am I have to take out of the room? How much more dry space am I going to need? And those things. How am I going to have to re-inoculate my soil more? Because if you're pulling, and this is one that got me really hard, is I got comfortable doing the same. You know, I test my soil at Logan Labs. I see the trends. I gear my top dress up for the trends, and I do slow, small solutions. I've never aced a soil test in one shot. I aim slow and small solutions, and I get there eventually. If I see the trend change, I change my top dress mix to address it. Well, I got really comfortable. I found a really good mix that was working. Soil tests were coming back really consistent year after year. And then I switched to faux lights, and I did the same top dressing. And you know what happened? Within like 2 fucking cycles, maybe 3, I completely depleted my soil. I mean, I was cropping out hard. I mean, I was literally doubling yields. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. I was doubling yields and putting the same amount back into my soil, and that shit caught up real quick. So definitely, because these are those ripple effects. You can't change something as big as a light and expect, like, that's the biggest input in your whole, like, it's going to change so much. So just be aware of that, guys. So, you actually reminded me of something. Thank you. Yeah, so that's one thing too with these strong lights. I can't start them off high. They're dimmable for a reason. You start them off low with a lower CO2, because if you're not photosynthesizing at a high level, you don't need, why do you have all the extra carbon there? It's not being used. So when I start my rooms, I run it at about a 400 to 500 average, kind of like a little higher outdoor kind of thing. You know, what is outdoors, 300 or 400? On average. So I run a little bit higher than that. As my plants grow, I warm up my rooms as I increase the light and as I increase the CO2. If I fucking turn up my lights without turning up my fucking temperature, now I'm gonna stress my fucking plants out, okay? Now, leaf temperature, that's another thing. If you grew up with HPS, your leaf surface temperature matches your air temperature a little bit closer. When you're going with LEDs, it's not the same. There's quite a difference. I'm sorry. Yeah, so back in HPS, you would set your AC for 70. Your air temperature would be 70. Your leaf surface would be like 81. With LEDs, it's not that. You could set your air temperature is your leaf surface temperature. So you got to be a little bit on the high side. I run my rooms mid-flower, 85 degrees. I warm them up slowly, just like the seasons, and I cool them off slowly. I start warm and wet, and I end on the cooler, dry side, just like nature. So just make sure you guys are being aware of that. The CO2 is a good one. Don't waste CO2. You can actually stress the plants out more by adding it too much too soon. Definitely a good one. I use injection, but my rooms are set up for passive too, so if I don't get CO2, I could just run passive circulation and get outdoor air. Where are we at? Pheno hunting. I can't take on clone-only OGs. They don't grow good in my system. I've fucking had all of them given to me. They all grow like shit in my system because they weren't fucking bred or found or pheno hunted in living soil under LEDs. So I don't get that expression. I get a stressed out fucking plant that has deficiencies every fucking time. And people will tell me, oh, well, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta give it a special this. No, my room gets the same exact fucking thing because I'm not chasing shit. So when I pheno hunt, I'm not looking for what works better in your system, I'm looking for what works good in my system. So like, if I see a fucking strain that looks really fucking bomb and it's throwing some weird ass deficiency, if I can't live with that deficiency, then that's not my pheno. I need to find a pheno that grows good in my system. So like all the OGs that all the cool kid shit doesn't work in my system. If I want a good OG, I have to find a good OG phenotype in my environment. So when you're pheno hunting, don't go chasing shit. Find what works in your system and grow that. That's your pheno. You're looking for what works best in your environment. That's a pheno expression. Don't change shit, all right? But with that in mind, I have 3 rooms I treat identical. Even if I have a problem, I'll repeat a problem just so I can repeat the solution and keep them consistent. And the beauty of that is I have a room at every stage of life at all the time. So when I do a soil test and all my rooms have been treated the same, I could see what that soil looked like at the beginning, middle, and end. So I can when I make my proper assumption or my recommendations or whatever my top dress is with, I know what it started looking like, and I know what it ended looking like. So now I know what to do going forward. I seen the trend. You attract trends like that. And I could do it all at once, in one glimpse. I don't gotta, wait 3 months to see what happened. I'll top dress one room and I'll start the whole cycle, and then at the end of the cycle, that room's finishing up, this room's midway through, this one just got started. I'll take a picture, and I'll get the full picture of what that cycle looked like. I've done it for 8 years, and it's beautiful. You can really see some trends start to form, and it really makes a lot of things real simple. Trying to think. I have some things I just want to get out there, and I'm going to open up for questions. Okay. Now, we're in a struggling industry, and I have some motivational things I just want to say to you guys, some things you guys can think about and use before making decisions, okay? These are cheesy. These are me. This ain't some fucking Instagram meme I seen, and I'm just trying to fucking regurgitate it to you guys. These are just some things that I do that I preach to myself, okay? First one. If you're going to do business with somebody, there's 4 characters to consider who you're doing business with. And there's only 4. Don't try to be more creative than me. This works with these 4, okay? Trust me, you're going to see what I'm saying in a second. There's 4 characters, okay? You got to know the nature of each one of these characters, okay? This is more of a know the nature of who you're dealing with, okay? So we hear a lot about wolves. Wolves, these big, scary fucking animals. They're scary. They're wolves. They dress as sheep and they eat people. They're fucking bad guys. Wolves are dope, dude. Wolves are a valuable part of the ecosystem. They're pack animals. If you're in a fucking wolf pack, you're protected. They're good. I have a really good lawyer team. They're all Mormons and stuff. There's some really high-end lawyers. They took me in their pack, dude, and it feels good. I'll be honest. So wolves aren't bad, guys. Wolves are a good thing. If you're in a wolf pack, don't be wrong. A wolf will eat a sheep to feed its family. Don't be fucking around with wolves if you're a sheep, all right? The next one is sharks. Sharks have a bad reputation. Sharks serve a very valuable role in their ecosystem, all right? If you're swimming with sharks, you better fucking swim fast and stay hungry, period. Because the minute you stop fucking eating, you're getting eaten. And that's a shark mentality. So there's a lot of business guys and high-end business guys, and they're fucking sharks, and they scare a lot of people. Sharks don't fucking scare me, dude. I swim with sharks all fucking day. I love spearfishing, so I literally mean that. It's a mindset thing. I remember I took my son, my wife's brother, I took him spearfishing for the first time, and we jump in the ocean, and he's like, the first question out of his mouth is, what if we see a shark? I looked him dead in the eyes. I said, then there'll be 3 of us. He looked at me confused, like, what do you mean? I was like, think like a shark, swim like a shark, eat like a shark. Think like a guppy, swim like a guppy, get eaten like a guppy, period. So if you're afraid of getting eaten by sharks, stay the fuck out of the water. Okay, guys? Next animal, the sheep. We all love sheeps. Nobody wants to be a sheep, but we all like to pet them and shit. Do you know what's more dangerous than a wolf dressed as a sheep? Is a sheep dressed as a fucking wolf. Because they will get you into some shit and leave you fucking hanging, and you'll be all by your fucking self like, fuck, dude, I thought I was part of a wolf pack. All right, so if you're a fucking sheep, stay with your shepherd. All right, don't be fucking swimming with sharks. Don't be running with fucking wolves. Stay in your lane. All right. We all forget about snakes. Snakes love gardens, dude. And them shape-shifting motherfuckers will pretend to be a wolf, a shark, a sheep, whatever the fuck you need them to be. All right, guys? So just be wary of snakes. Okay, guys? They're everywhere. They serve a role in the ecosystem. The only thing they get from me is a heel of my fucking boot, period. Okay, guys? Don't do business with them. All right. Whenever you have to make a good decision, and this is cheesy, but I swear to God I do this, I ask 3 people. I ask my 10-year-old self, because in my mind, that was the purest version of me before I started jerking off and smoking weed and shit. So I asked the 10-year-old Steve Cantwell those questions, you know. Then I'll ask my current self, and then I'll picture where I'm at in the future, and then I'll ask that Steve Cantwell, hey, is this a good decision? And if I don't get a consensus or at least a 2-to-1, I don't do it. Because a lot of times the Steve Cantwell right now might be thinking about, the cool thing, the fucking, I want that new car, I want that fucking fishing boat, I want that this. And then I asked little Steven, he's like, well, if you cut that tree down, where the birds gonna live? And he starts doing those little kid ass type shit, and there's a beauty in that. And what I think by doing that, what we're getting the answer to when you ask your past, present, and future self, is I think you're getting an answer from your eternal soul, because you're getting a consensus. Your soul is timeless. So to me, that's how you find the perfect answer going forward. Past, present, and future self. Picture yourself, put yourself in that position, and ask yourself the questions. It'll work, I promise. The next one, this ain't gonna be a popular one. If you're building a business plan, and you don't leave room for the rich to get richer, you're not gonna be successful. How many people in this room started growing a cannabis because they wanted to get rich? How many people, and that's okay to want to make money. I'm not hating on money. We need money. I want to save the world. This will take a lot of fucking money to do it. So I'm not hating on money. I'm just want to point out people's intentions, okay? So nobody in here intends to be a billionaire growing cannabis. I mean, it'd be nice, but that's not your goal. Your goal is to what? To grow a plant that you love, right? Is that fair? You want to farm, you want to save the world, whatever your thing may be, that's your thing, right? Okay. Remember that. Because business people like making money. That's their thing. So if you want to take an Earth Care fair share, or Earth Care People Care fair share, give them what they want, the fair share. Give them the money side. I want to grow weed. I want to save the world. If you help me do that, yeah, you can make some fucking money. Because if I want to save the world and I want to make their money, now who's being greedy? So just consider that, guys. And one thing that I look to is like when Jesus was asked about paying taxes. They tried to trick him, They're like, hey, so is it like, do we have to pay taxes, or is that like some bullshit? And he's like, you're trying to trap me right now. And his answer was, he looked at the coin and he said, whose face is that? And they're like, oh, it's Caesar. He said, cool. Give Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Give God what belongs to God. So if you guys are growers and you want to grow and you want to save the world, take that. That's yours. But it's going to take a sustainable business model that makes other people money to do what they want to do. And if you don't figure out how to do that, if you don't leave room for them to make money, you're not going to be successful. And how you can do that is by growing a high quality product for low price. If it costs me fucking $30 to grow an eighth, then I got to sell it for $60. Where's their profit margin? They can't make no fucking money on that. You got to be able to grow a product that people want and sell it for a cheap enough price to where they can make money on it too. So just make sure you guys are considering or making sure that your business plan includes area for the rich to get richer. I know it sounds fucked up, but don't be greedy. All right, guys? Yeah, those aren't very popular ideas, but I live by them. I pretty much think that's it. I'm running short on time, no?
It's 6:11 right now. Do you want to do your bottomless pot video or go to questions?
Have you guys, raise your hand if you've seen my bottomless pot video? Okay, it's online. You guys can watch it. You guys want to watch it, we can later. It's on my Instagram page. I'll give a brief little thing, though. You want to play, it's kind of your thing. I talk too long, and I want to cut them off. I was trying to give them like a little product push with these bottomless pots, and I fucked that up.
I think we're good on bottomless pots, Steve, but I think the people want the education for sure.
So basically, I had this idea. Digging holes sucked. It was super messy, time-consuming. It was taking about 2 days to fully replant a room. I had a plant one time. It was in a pot. It was all stressed out. I needed to transplant it. I set it down on my mother bed. I got busy. Came back a week later, and it was green as fuck. Went to move it, and it was stuck to the bed. It grew through the drainage holes, and I was like, holy shit, dude. And just immediately, I was like, little rock wool, big rock wool. I was like, how did I have not thought of this before? So I just started cutting the bottom of my pots off. I would set them on a saucer and fill them. So the bottom is the saucer now. So I'll put this right here. So you cut the bottom of the pot off. You set it on a saucer. You fill it. Now it's basically a pot. You put your clone in it or a seed, whatever. grow it out for about 2 to 3 weeks. In 2 to 3 weeks, that pot is going to be full of a root system. That root system is going to accumulate on the bottom of the pot, like you guys just saw the blue mat video. Very common. Show it right there. And then you can just take it and you can set it on your bed. Now, and what that does is, originally we were just trying to bypass labor. Right? I didn't like digging holes. I didn't like making a mess and cleaning it. So my main thing was commercially viable planting system to reduce labor. But then what we found out was that by setting it on the ground like that, we're not transplanting no more, and we're not having transplant shock, and we're getting faster growth rates, and we're actually, reducing our veg times, or getting more veg out of that at the same time. So we actually had good results from doing it as well. So I highly recommend it. A couple tips. We don't have to watch the whole video, but the first 10 days, you're going to want to water the bottomless pots. At least in my system, my room's maybe a little drier than you. I don't know, but I recommend watering the bottomless pots the first 7 to 10 days until they really acclimate into the new soil. Okay. Otherwise, you're going to have a dry pot on a wet bed, and it's just you're going to have a stressed out plant. So if you want to avoid stress, make sure you keep the bottomless pots wet the first week. I create a grid pattern. In my beds, there's a grid. It's a 12 or a 18 per bed. And every row, one cycle, this is all 12, this whole row. The next one next to it is all 18, 12, 18. And then the next cycle, I switch it. Now, these are 18 a bed, 12 a bed. And I do that because it creates a crop rotation. I don't have my mid-sex, my heaviest yielder, in the same bed cycle after cycle, depleting the fucking bed. I'm rotating my 7s in, my 10s, or my 9s in, all these different flowering strains. I'm rotating them in different beds all the time. So I have much more consistent soil. And what you do is you grow in one pot, one space here, you create a grid pattern. And you're going to grow here this time, my whole cycle. I cut it down. I leave the pot. My next pot is going right next to it. You can kind of see. It'll go right next to it. And it's just a grid that I go back and forth each cycle, okay? And then what I do is it gives this one a cycle to break down. So now it's attached. If I try to remove right away, I'm going to do more soil disturbance than if I were to just dig a fucking hole. It's going to pull all kinds of roots out and shit. So you leave it. You let it break down. You come back a cycle later, that old pot, it just lifts right up. Now you have this fresh, nice, clean soil surface to just place right onto. Super easy and efficient, and it works just seamlessly. I haven't had a single bad result from it. But again, it's a grid pattern. Whether you go with the 18 or 12 thing, that's all on your guys' shit. But I recommend creating a grid. If it's in a pot, plant them right next to each other. This one goes this cycle, cut it down, leave it, plant the next one here, and just rotate your pots. Okay. Trying to think if there's anything else about the bottomless pot. What's that? Great question. So this 7 by 7, Tyler? Were they 7 by 7, correct?
7 by 7, 1 gallon.
Yes, sir. I actually had these notes. I might say these numbers wrong a little bit. I forgot to actually write this down. But the reason we did the 7 by 7 is because it fits evenly that grid pattern. On a 4 by 4 space, you could fit a 6 by 6 or a 6 grid pattern, and then it's going to leave 4 to 6 inches from your grid line on all sides. So you're not getting too close to the outside dryness of the bed. So you're still staying in the center of the bed, and you're just rotating hole to hole, boom, 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 boom. I also did the 7 inches for another reason, and then the 7 inches for another reason, because USDA regulations or recommendations say that you can't have mulch within 3 inches of your stalk, of your plant. So by having those pots 6, 7 inches wide, if you don't put mulch in there, you meet that regulation right off the bat. Now, as far as living mulch goes, we're 6 inches up now. So it creates this whole dynamic. If someone were to try to come in and they see a living mulch or a heavy mulch, they try to use that regulation to hurt you, you'd be like, no, look at these pots. It's 6 inches up, fucking 3 inches in, and you're really safe. Oh, and for metric tag. It was like one of these universal numbers that we found that just literally fucking worked for everything. The metric tag has to be 6 inches off the ground or on the plant or something like that. So you can put the metric tag, and it's perfect for that too. So just a lot of really lucky numbers that came out of that size. Yes, every single time. And if I have to, I'll re-amend that soil too. A lot of times I'll run the same veg cycle for several cycles, and I'll see my veg slow down. And the next cycles, when I pull those pots, I'll take them outside and I'll cut it with some shit. Usually I'll test it first, but I'll cut it, I'll boost it up a little bit, and then that's... I want to eventually see if I don't even have to dump them out. I want to see how long I could even potentially just peel them off, set them on a saucer, and then plant right back into them, because that would also create another labor saver as far as not having to refill them and dump them out and all that shit. So I also want to do a trial on that, see how long I could just keep using them. But we're on questions now, guys, so go ahead and shoot.
I gotcha.
Horizon style beds or some super soil from Tad or whoever?
I've used Tad soil, dude. It works pretty well, dude. I didn't have any problems with it. I used it late after we opened. I'll get on that one. I used Tad soil when I did my veg bed. I did a veg bed. I used his soil, and I put it in some 30-gallon pots. And he has a great soil mix. But keep in mind, guys, you're not going to buy a mix, and you're not running that mix for the next 10 years. That's your base. You're building soil now. He gave you a base to start with. It's up to you to fucking build it. So I hear a lot of people complain about their base soil mixes. What my soil looks like today, it sure in the fuck wasn't 8 years ago, I assure you guys. So just make sure that you guys understand that. As far as the horizon beds, I like Leighton's idea with it. I really do, just because it kind of lines up with nature. I'm not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze to the degree that he goes with it. I haven't done it yet. I did like an older, more of a pro science version of it, where you just did the lava rock at the bottom of the beds for drainage and all those cool things. And then fucking Tad makes a video talking about fucking how that's a problem. So where were you 8 years ago? Where's that fucking that podcast at then? Anyway, just joking, just breaking balls. I like the idea of it. I haven't done it. I take it back. I did do it, not to the degree that Leighton did it. I did it with in my. I guess I could say I'm not running it no more. I built a side-by-side test grow at my house, and I made it look like GLP, so whenever I took pictures of it, it would look like GLP, and people would know I was growing at home. But I could say that now because we now use it to fucking grow tomato plants, so it's no longer illegal. But it's a really nice fucking home grow, 2 side-by-side foes. It was the coolest grow I ever built, I'll be honest. But in those soil beds, I did it more of a horizon style. I used my native clay dirt. I used it at a lower level, so I still did my old school rock technique, but I used not just lava rock, various rocks. Then I laid a layer of our clay. The reason I did the clay specifically was because, again, I found problems holding on to potassium in the living system. That's been my biggest element to deal with that I've come across, is maintaining levels of potassium. So I did it because clay holds on to shit. It has a high CEC, it's fucking low surface space. If you have good clay, there's a chance you're not gonna fucking be mopping up fucking potassium off your floor. So that was my thought process, and this was before Leighton did his whole thing, and it got really popular. He does like a straight up, I'm looking at you, but it's you, I'm sorry. He does a straight up fucking crazy ass outdoor mix, and he saves money. It's really cool what he does. If it works, I'm cool with it. I just haven't tried it, so I can't fully sign off on it. I like the idea behind it because, as you guys know, I'm very nature-based. Nature's my teacher, so if you're looking at nature to get an idea to incorporate, it's cool. We just got to make sure the juice is worth the squeeze. Again, like, we don't want to go plant a bunch of fucking cover crops because they make pretty pictures if they're creating a bigger problem. We got to make sure the juice is worth the squeeze. There's got to be a system behind it. There's got to be some. You got to put a business hat on, you know. But it is a cool concept. I do like it. I just haven't had enough time to play with it. I'm letting you pick, dude.
I have a couple different questions here, but I'd definitely start off with being very familiar with Josh and Kelly from Dragon Earthfly Medicine, and you're being one of the only indoor growers following the DEM program. What are some of the loops that you've closed on with GLP in that sense? And then also, this will probably depend on what type of isopods you're using currently, but what types of wood are you implementing in your beds as well?
All right, so Josh and Kelly. What was the Josh and Kelly question again? I'm sorry. Loops.
What
Loops
you're closing on your indoor?
So when I first met Josh and Kelly, I really didn't know who they were all that much. I mean, I was recently introduced to them. Oh, these guys are cool as shit. Hell yeah, let's have them out. And I didn't really even know a whole lot about the Pure certification. They came out, and they didn't think I had a chance. They came out because I was fucking the kid everybody was memeing. So they came out, and they didn't plan on certifying me. They didn't think I had a fucking chance. And they walked through, and they have the, 8 closed loops, I believe it is? And they started walking through, and they started counting all these closed loops, and they're like, fuck, this dude has all these closed loops. Like, he meets the requirements. He's organic. He's this, he's that. And it was a hard one for them because for those of you who don't know Josh and Kelly, they are connected to the outdoor sun-grown regenerative scene as it gets. If you have a door on your hoop house, it's indoors. It's like they're pretty strict. They hang out with people like Nick from Green Source. It's a tough crowd. Okay, so for them to certify an indoor grow was not easy. But back to those closed loop systems. We recycle. Our chopping and dropping, our composting, our water catching, our jar recycling program is something really cool we do, especially to create a consumer, can't think of the word, but they're consumers with a little relationship, direct connection, whatever. I'm lost for words right now. But we do a jar recycling program. So we make our jars now. They're actually printed on the jars, and we have glass jars. And then we have pop-ups where we actually will send one of our representatives to a dispensary, and then we'll promote on our page, hey, we're jar recycling program today. People come in there with X amount of jars gets you a hat, X amount of jars gets you a pre-roll or whatever, and then we're getting people to show up and to recycle their jars. And that's really cool because at the end of the day, I'm not gonna save the world recycling jars, but what I'm trying to do is, one, I don't wanna ever see a mountain of GLP trash. That's like a really bad vision. I don't like the idea of that. So I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can to avoid that. But then what we're doing with these, by making people recycle these jars, by putting that in their head, is we're planting a seed in their head. Like, hey, think more regeneratively, think more sustainably, think more recyclably. So even if it's, by itself, no, it's not going to fucking save the world. But if I could plant a seed in somebody's head and start thinking more regeneratively, more eco-friendly, dude, that's worth it, man. We don't make any money off of it. Shit, we probably lose a little bit of money washing them fucking things, but it's not like a big thing. We're not losing on it. It creates a really good customer base, dedicated consumers. Like, they love our brand because of it. I didn't count all 8 though. We grow our own inputs. What's that? Oh yeah, we grow food. I can't think of them off the top of my head right now because you put me on a spot. But they're possible indoors. And if anybody is an indoor grower and they're like close to me, California, Nevada, Arizona, and you want to get damn pure certified, reach out to Josh and Kelly, and they'll probably ask me to go out to your property and certify you. It's a really cool thing. I'd recommend it. There's just a community that they're part of that it's just we need more of. So, any other good ones? Oh, okay. So they showed up. They just happened to show up. I'm not 100% sure on the species, but there is at least there's a couple different color ones of the same shape. There's 2 distinctly different species. One's flat, doesn't roll up. It's an isopod. I can't think of it if like a Susan or fucking Matt guy were here, they probably know. I know Matt knows. He's seen my shit. But as far as feeding them goes, I just feed them wood. That's all I'm trying to do. And a cool thing, like in a regulated thing, if you guys are having a hard time, for me, example, if you can get oak, that's cool. That's like the best wood. That's my favorite wood to mulch with. It's really hard to find. And then if you're dealing with state regulators, shit like that, they want to make sure that it was sterile and clean and food grade and all these things to make sure that you can bring it into your facility without hurting the consumer. So one good thing that you can do is, it's a little expensive, so I'm not saying you should do it every fucking cycle, but oak lasts a long time as a mulch. That shit don't break down very fast. I use smoker wood chips. So bulk smoker wood chips. They don't spray it with anything because they're cooking food with it. They can't. So it's super clean, sterile, and yeah, it guarantees I'm not going to introduce anything stupid to my fucking grow. I'm gonna spend a little bit more money, but they're really not even that expensive, honestly. So I recommend just finding a good smoker brand of oak wood chips is a really good place to start.
Is the goal, beside the gnarly regulations, to get your root ball ground up and to use that as a wood source?
No, I use as much stem as I can. And again, I still recommend putting as much of your plant back into your soil. So when I say no chop and dropping, I'm not saying remove the cannabis plant and throw it away. I'm saying I think those green leaves are better served at being thermophilically composted than they are being put onto a soil. As far as stems go, I love putting stems on the soil. Currently, I can't, but I will when I can. It's more or less my problem with the chop and dropping, just on the green leaf side. Not even if you're post-harvest, throw those leaves on the bed because there's less nutrients in them, and now they're going to break down during veg because you already harvested the room. So, any other good ones?
Are you composting inside the indoor facility or elsewhere?
Good question. No. And I can only compost in the wintertime. It's so fucking hot in the desert. If I can't even touch during spring through fall, it's a no-go. Between the heat and drying out the piles and just the constant fly pressure, I have to wait until roughly like late November, mid-November, and that's when compost season starts for us. So all year, I chop it up and I store it dry. And we have a whole little composting thing outside, platform, little bins and shit where I store various materials. We have lockable bins now because the state made us put all of our valuable cannabis waste in these big lockable bins. But I run a primarily cannabis waste dominant compost pile. There's a lot of different ways to fine tune it. It's not all cannabis, it's mostly cannabis. But it's just, for me, it's not even the need to use that much compost every year. I really only need like a yard of compost a year to feed my whole grow because I know how to make teas and extracts. But I compost and I make 4 to 5 yards a year because I need to put my waste back into the system. So I use 5 yards of really 3 to 5, I would say, depending on how good I was at year composting. But again, it's less of a I need this biocomplete amendment. It's less of that and more I need this as a closed loop system so I don't want to throw this trash away and I have a really good place for it. So that's kind of how I use it. It's more just to not throw the shit away. It's not even I don't even need the biological input half the time. My soil is just alive as my compost, 90% of the time.
Well, first of all, I want to say I appreciate you. You're the one person I'll miss the Super Bowl to hear you speak. You threw a lot of stuff out today, a lot of really innovative things that are, unique. How would you recommend a grower start incorporating or dipping their toes? Because this is like a whole system, right? Yeah. Like, where would you even begin to start if you were, young Steve were to try and reset this up again at a faster pace?
Yeah, that's a good question. Slow and small solutions, definitely. I think, I'm not sure if it was you or someone alluded earlier, they have a problem, they throw 100 solutions at it, they solve the problem, but they don't know how they did it, now they gotta buy 100 solutions every fucking cycle. So I would definitely slow and small solutions, add one thing at a time. Look to systems thinking, to stacking functions. The more you can stack functions, the easier it's going to be. Example, when I opened this grow, I had 5 growers plus myself that were working 40 hours a week, and the place was a fucking mess. Year after year after year, we got more efficient. Now I have 2 growers that work 25 to 30 hours a week, and my place is fucking spotless. And it's just through kind of, obviously a good soil mix. To answer your question, start with a good soil mix is going to be the best place to start. But then stack some functions, make shit easy, look to nature, and don't be afraid. Like, the shit works, dude. Like, I get it. 10 years ago, it was kind of, you're rolling the dice a little bit, but it's been tried, true, proven. If you run into a problem, there's guaranteed a professional that specializes in that problem that's already worked with cannabis. So there really shouldn't be much fear. Again, I would look to permaculture, look at their design, I can't think of the fucking word right now, sorry, but permaculture design, Matt Davenport, you're killing me right now. The ethics and principles of permaculture, they have the little chart of these things that you're supposed to follow: earth care, fair share, people share. But when you're designing a space, they have these tools that you can really look to help you solve problems in a regenerative permaculture state of mind. So, like, again, you've heard me say some of them already: slow, small solutions. Again, put myself on this damn spot. But there's a bunch of really, really, really simple things to follow that will help you design your system. Look to nature, model your rooms after the best place in the world that grows weed, as far as your parameters go. And yeah, good soil, good light, and yeah, hit it hard, dude. Good intentions. Good soil, good light, good intentions. Start with that. Fuck that flight, dude. This is more important. Nah, I'm in no rush, guys. I could drive fast, dude. So don't. If you guys got questions, answer, guys. I could reschedule if I have to. But
it's hard to tell from these photos, but it doesn't really look like you're using trellis.
No, there's trellis. Yeah, no. Yeah, it really doesn't look like in that photo. That's a trip, dude. No, we use trellis. You have to at that stage for sure. If you guys find a more sustainable alternative for trellis as far as plastic goes, please let me know because I throw a lot of that shit away, recycle. You can't really use the fibrous stuff because you get hairs and buds, and it's just more problematic. So just make sure if anybody finds a better solution for that we share it. All right.
On your bottomless pots, I noticed they're non-lined. Do you prefer that? And if you do prefer that, why is that?
I want the root pruning. I want to drive those roots down. So that was my original. I had semi good success with just the hard pots, bottoms cut off. But you got to understand, one of the problems that I ran into that Tyler actually manned the fuck up and helped me was the state thought that what I originally was. Thought we weren't using this product as it was intended. They just assumed I was cutting the bottom off. And for me to be able to do that, I had to show them that I was using those pots as the manufacturer intended. So I'm in a meeting with the CCB, and they're like, yeah, you're not using these pots how they're intended. I'm like, I've invented the fucking idea. Like, I'm the one who intended this. So we called Tyler, and we're like, hey, Tyler, I need you to write out this little piece of paper that tells me how I'm supposed to use them. And he did. And the CCB actually called him and harassed him and gave him a bunch of shit as far as... Yeah, all right.
He asked some really weird questions, and I was talking to a cop. Kind of stuff.
And I've been kind of hard on my CCB tonight, and I should apologize for that, because they have a really tough job too. They took on a really fucking broken system. The previous regulators did a really poor job, and they really took on a lot. And I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to be the gold standard. I don't agree with the way that they're going about it. I think they could do better. They could work with us more. But I'm thankful for them because they're ultimately going to keep the system, around if they do their job right. So I am thankful for what they're trying to achieve.
Kind of a follow-up question. I noticed the saucers are pretty tight. Have you experimented with wider saucers and feeding from the bottom for like that capillary action?
I've thought about doing the feeding from the bottom. We kind of do because when we water our plants, we're not like, at least in a veg when they're on a rack, we're not like watering. We're just kind of just moving nice and evenly over them, just kind of staying moving, And it's falling in between. It's catching on the saucers. There's a little bit of capillary action. But no, I actually look forward to trying the capillary mats from Bluemont. I really feel like I have a space for it in my veg. Again, I'm not in a hurry to put a carrot in my bed until I test some carrots again. I do like the new protocols that they have for gauging them and stuff. That's really cool. But no, I will have more innovations on the bottomless pot thing this year with the capillary mat because we are going to partner up and try some stuff together.
Do you run a IPM program for pests like spider mites, russet mites, aphids, thrips, like everything, like anything broad that covers everything?
If you're saying, do I have a one thing that I can spray that kills everything? No.
Or a regimen, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a regimen, and it literally starts from the moment you walk in my door. Actually, even before that, I don't hire nobody without an agreement that they don't grow at their house without me knowing about it. Like trimmers, they're not even allowed to grow. I don't trust them enough because they're usually a pretty in and out position. But I feel like when my higher up managers, grow pop plant home, you just gotta let me know so we can make sure that your home has a proper IPM regimens, and that's kind of where the IPM starts, is at your grower's house. From there, no street clothes in the facility. Like once you walk in my lobby, or you're not walking past my locker room lobby in street clothes. You can wear an coverall, or you can get fully dressed out in scrubs. We wash our hands from the elbows up. Everybody does, myself included, every single time. I have this thing I do. I spray people's feet. So like whenever I'm giving a tour, I have like a really strong essential oil. And like when I walk into my grow room, it's like my bed right there, and I'm standing by the door. I'm like still far away from my plants and stuff. What I like to do is I'll spray people's feet with an essential oil, like a really strong essential oil. I'll soak the whole fucking ground around them, and then. Well, he smelled funny, dude, so we had to top to bottom. No, I'm just joking. But no, I'll spray, and you'll testify this time if you remember. I'll spray people's feet, and a lot of people don't know this, and then I'll sit there and I'll talk to them. I'll distract them with some bullshit. And I'll say, hey, look at my Focus light controllers. Oh, yeah, look at this rack. Look, hey, fucking, you're from Montana. Cool. I'm not. And we just bullshit small talk, okay? And within I realized I just sprayed an essential oil that fucking bugs hate the smell of. So if they're trying to fucking Trojan horse me, there's a good chance the shit's gonna jump off right there into a puddle of its own death. So that's just like one little thing I do. Another thing I do, I design my facility to a need-to-be space. If you don't need to be there, it's not your fucking space. So I have trimmers that worked for me for years that have never seen past my fucking bedroom door because they didn't fucking need to. So if anybody that doesn't need to be in my grow is never in my grow. That's why I don't give a lot of tours and stuff. It's just I have 35 employees to feed. If I get a spider mite and I take a loss and I gotta shut my room down, I can give a fuck less about making money that month. I just sent 35 fucking families home fucking without money that month. That's a huge responsibility that I'm not gonna take for anybody to see my fucking dope ass flowers and brag about me on Instagram. So I get a lot of requests for tours and I unfortunately have to turn them down because I'm looking out for my team. I have to keep my team safe. I'm the fucking chief. That's my fucking tribe. It's my goal to make sure that they eat. So that's my main thing is I don't let people in my grow. Dem Pure family always gets in easy. A lot of you guys are like-minded, and if you hit me up in time, we can plan it. I'll definitely show most of you guys around. But it's not something I do often. I have a room order. I have 3 rooms, and it has an order, and that order is always changing. The biggest vector of pests is us. So if I walk into a late stage room and I have a late stage pest and then I walk into an early stage room, I just gave that fucking pest all the time it needs to blow the fuck up and double in fucking that atmosphere and that environment. So we have a very strict timeline, and usually our order of operations, and it's usually based off of where the cycles are or if we have an issue. So like example, if I do have a thrip in a room, that room's last. Usually if the middle room is usually the first room because it's the most susceptible. It's still green, it still has plenty of time to go, and I can't spray it. My bedroom is usually the first room because worst case, I could fucking spray it with some neem oil or something. When I say spray, I'm talking organic stuff, guys. I would never do nothing crazy. Or compost tea. And then, then I'll have my last room will be the most vulnerable room, the room that I can't afford to fucking lose. So, like, if I have a tour going and they're from California, my latest flowering room is usually off limits to them. I won't even show it to them because I can't afford to get a spider mite in there at that time. There's nothing I can do, and that's a hard reset. I do foliar sprays, primarily compost. I had to back off compost last year because of the state issue, and I had to go back to like more on the essential oil things. I leaned on Ian from Mountain Botanicals and his product. I like the soap nuts. It really makes it easy to emulsify. So I used that a lot last year, just in absence of my compost teas. But yeah, I foliar compost teas early. And I have a good success rate doing that. I'm trying to think IPM too. Yeah, yeah, I don't know how the fuck I forgot about those. Yeah, depending on what you're dealing with, I like Swarovskis. I think it's a really good one. They take on a lot of shit. You gotta be careful, obviously, what you add because certain things need to be fed on the pest. So if you don't have that pest and you introduce that predator, you're putting yourself at risk of adding that pest. So my favorite bugs are Swarovski mites. I think they cover a broad thing, and they like Western flower thrips, so they help me with that quite a bit. Pirate bugs, again, my main concern is the Western flower thrip. So pirate bugs and Swarovskis are my big ones. I've had mealybugs before and had mealybug destroyers, both adult and larva. And one thing I recommend if you ever get mealybugs, don't order the adult and larva mealybug destroyers at the same time. I feel like the adults will eat their larvae indiscriminately, just not knowing. I'm not sure if that's a fact, but it just seems like whenever I add the adults with the larva, I don't see the larva as long. Nematodes are fucking great. There's all kinds of them for all kinds of specific reasons. I would definitely lean on those for a lot of things. Bassiana is cool. I don't want to talk about it too much just because of everything going on. Don't want to open any questions on that with state regulators. I'd rather leave that one alone right now. But it works. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. And just making sure you're clean, man. Honestly, I clean my rooms every single day. Every single day.
For a lot of us, we're like full season outdoor farmers or greenhouse farmers, all our neighbors are farming too. So it's just a constant. You can get rid of something, but it always comes back. You know what I mean? Like, no matter how clean you are, if people are
in that case, I forgot about this. Look into more banker plants and trap plants.
Cool.
I've had a lot of success with trap plants, but don't be crazy with it. Like I'm saying, don't spread. don't fucking plant a million plants of something and make it a bigger problem than solution. Be very specific, put that fish in the right place, and you can use trap plants. And then you can also use, if you're outdoors, get pollinators, man. Welcome the good guys, dude. You got to attract the good guys too. It was one of the things I was so stoked to see when I started my produce farm, as I'm walking around in springtime and I'm fucking seeing all these beneficial insects. I'm like, fuck, dude, these motherfuckers just showed up, dude. That was insane, dude. Like how much money I pay for these every fucking month, and these just show up outdoors. So I thought that was pretty cool. But then when I realized they showed up for a reason, and that wasn't as cool. We pretty much go banker plant, trap plant, lots of pollinators in the system to attract all the beneficials is the best thing you can do. And then just talk to etymologists, tell them what area you live in, what you're dealing with, and then they'll always have a solid answer. Like I said, like you don't have to be an expert. You just have to know an expert. Like you don't need to. It's like smart people. They don't always know the answer. They just know where to fucking find it. You know, that's how they get through school. So with the internet these days, with Instagram these days, the answers are there. The solutions are there. You just got to be willing to find them.
What insectary do you use?
Primarily, I think we use copert. Hey, babe, quinine? Copert, right? But I'm not like crazy, like loyal to them. If you have a local insectary, I would definitely go as local as possible. I've just gone with copert because over the years I've gone with them. They kind of know how to deal with us in the desert. So like in the summertime, and this took a couple years to figure out, but in the summertime they know not to send me bugs without a shitload of ice packs, and they better do it overnight because there's no point otherwise. So I work with them for that reason, but I'm not like, I don't, any insectary would do. It's local, the more local the better.
Hey Steve, just wondering, do you use the light microscope to assess your soil and use that information to make any decisions?
Yes, absolutely yes. Since I've been certified under the Lane program, nothing has been brewed or biological that's entered my soil without first being scoped. Just good habit, especially if you're doing teas. It's really easy to fuck a tea up. That's why like extracts are getting really popular right now. Teas are highly volatile, hard to repeat, easy to mess up. So if you are going to brew teas and you don't know how to brew a microscope or don't know how to use a microscope, I wouldn't recommend it, honestly. Lower your brew time, lower your food source, play it safe at best. But honestly, extract. I like to look at my soil before, then I'll look at my compost tea, and then I look at my soil after. And that's kind of like the process that we try to follow, just to see if the organisms that I intended to get introduced actually were introduced. For me, in a living soil system, it's all about nutrient cycling, so you gotta make sure all those players are there. Protozoa is a really hard thing to keep functioning in a peat-based mix. I feel like they need a certain amount of moisture for a certain amount of time to be active. Otherwise, they go into an assist form and then nutrient cycling stops. So that's also something that you're gonna have to figure out with your own customized watering schedule, is how to make sure that you're managing your nutrient cycling through your watering cycle.
Okay, we have one final question.
Can we still get your products in Reno?
We're I grow the weed, she sells it all, guys.
There'll be a delivery at Mint and the dispensaries. Locations.
We can talk about that. Let's talk about labs real quick for a second, because he said terpene results, and then now I gotta talk about labs. I love labs, but they're not perfect, and people think they are, and it sucks. Every week, me and my guy Dwayne Russell, we lay out all our results on a piece of paper, and we go fucking through them, because again, data is valuable, and I'm checking data because I want to know if I harvested that too soon, too late. Looking at CVGA is going to tell you that. If you see discrepancies in your test example, if I have one test comes back 30, one test comes back 20, same strain, same room, that's a good chance that's a bad lab. Not guaranteed, maybe they had two different buds, but a good chance, okay? Now, as far as terpenes go, I would say the highest we typically see Not sure how much I'm gonna put too much weight on this, but yeah, I've seen 2.5–3% terps on indoor LED grown. Our Miss X, I'm gonna get a lot of pushback on this, but I kind of stand by this one a little bit just because she's done it for 8 years. But she tests above 40% total cannabinoids, finishing usually around the 30% THC, a little bit above 30% THC. But I mean, she's done it. 10 different labs have tested her over 8 years, and they've all come back with these ridiculous results. And she's the only one that comes back with those results. What's weird about it. So on the cannabinoid side, I think 43 was my highest. On the terpene side, I think 3%. But take that with a grain of salt because those tests weren't made by me.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve Cantwell. That was amazing.